Hey, happy Monday and welcome to the Wise Guys. It feels like it's another massive show. Dave McCann, Blaine Fowler. We are the Wise Guys, the largest BYU sports live stream show in the whole world, presented by Brady Plus, distributed by the Deseret News. Our podcast will be out tomorrow wherever you get your podcasts. The stream is hopping, as always, right out of the gate.
Yeah,
and when you're 9-0, you want to get on the stream.
Yeah, and the stream, the chat is already full. Like, there's a whole page right now, and it's just streaming up. So Ryan Worthing says that game was too stressful. I would agree with that.
It was stressful.
Ruth Strain watching from Oregon City. Welcome in. Nebraska in the house with Weston Birch.
I watched that game again this afternoon, and I was stressed all over again. I was like, I actually know the ending.
Ashley Smith says, what a roller coaster. Unfortunately, the game story is about an AD that acted like a little child. He deserved more than $40K. We'll talk about that later.
We will.
So, and I agree with you, BYU Sports Addict. It is the best night of the week, and who would have thunk 9-0? It is crazy.
Hey, please subscribe to our free email at wiseguys.com. You can also watch all of our past interviews, everyone we've done over the last 2.5 years, and would love it if you hit the free subscribe button on our YouTube channel. So we need 3 subscribers to hit 5,000. Someday we'll have 50,000, but first we got to get to 5,000. So if you go to our YouTube page and you hit subscribe, it won't cost you anything. Help us grow the show, and we want to walk out here tonight. We're well over 5,000.
Yeah.
So help us out.
We got to get to that. Hey, Rebel Dog 62 says from Huntsville, Mike checking in from Huntsville, Alabama. Have we had Huntsville, Alabama in the house before?
Yeah, these are regular. These are regular. Good job.
There you go. And then I didn't know that we were getting watched up at the MTC. Zach, just don't let the missionaries watch. I know you're working up there.
Philippines is in with Glenn.
Watch,
Hey, Wise Guys is thrilled to have Brady Plus as our title sponsor. Brady Plus provides cleaning, food service, and packaging equipment, dispensers, and service and repairs with over 150 distribution facilities around the country, 6,000 employees. The president is a BYU grad and a good friend of Wise Guys. Bear Lake, Utah is in on the stream tonight.
That's right. Hey, and how about the Deseret News? Wise Guys now being distributed by the Deseret News and Deseret.com. Utah's newspaper since 1850. Watch for our content on all of their social media platforms and sites. They serve Cougar Nation all over the world, and combined with us, we're getting the word out, and we're grateful to have Deseret News as our distribution partner.
On this Veterans Day, Wise Guys salutes everyone who's served in our armed forces. We appreciate what you do, allows us to do what we do, and it wasn't long ago we had a member of the armed forces on Wise Guys from Kuwait.
That's right.
So we love everyone who helps us keep safe. So a happy Veterans Day to all those affected by a veteran in your family, in your family line, in your neighborhood. They're everywhere and they're awesome.
Yes, they are. So, hey, Jeff Thompson's in Puget Sound again. He says, hey, don't forget about us up here tucked away in the Northwest. We don't forget about you.
It's where the killer whales are.
It's actually Jet Thompson. Now, if your name's Jet, you have to be fast, don't you?
You have to.
So,
hey, tonight on the show, so the second college football playoff rankings come out tomorrow night. We'll talk about what that means for the Cougars, what it could mean for the Cougars as we move forward.
We'll do a little BYU-Utah recap. Lots to talk about with that one. Also a Kansas preview. Been doing our work on Kansas. I watched some of their game this last week, and I've been following them all year long. And then Kalani Sitaki. We've got a little sound from Kalani Sitaki on the show. So all of that coming up.
The author of this new book, Out of the Blue, Val Hale, is going to be with us, former athletic director at BYU, and there's another athletic director in the news this week, and so it's a perfect night to have Val on to talk about what in the world was Mark Harlan thinking when he stepped out to the microphone after the game on Saturday. And we're going to hear it from and through the eyes of another athletic director who's been in this rivalry.
Obviously he wasn't. When you say, what was he thinking?
Yeah.
He wasn't thinking, but we'll break it down. So, hey, Troy Dunn's here. Troy's putting together this Cougars cruise.
We've heard all about this cruise.
Yeah. Troy's going to fill us in on all the details. It's exciting. It's going to be fun. And so he's in the house as well. And both he and Val Hale are already in the green room. So they're here and ready to go.
It's tournament time for women's soccer. We'll let you know who they're hosting on Friday night in the Big Dance. And Jen Rockwood goes to the Big Dance all the time. 25th time in her career, 7th straight year. They've won the College Cup been in it 2 of the last 3 years, and now they're back in the show.
Would it surprise you if they make a run? Wouldn't surprise me. Just because she told us at the beginning of the year, we're really young, but we're really talented, and by the end of the year, hopefully we'll be ready to go and compete in the tournament. Now they're in the tournament.
Ashley Smith wants to know, hey, McCann. Thanks, Ashley.
Hey, McCann.
Where do you get that floating helmet? Go Richfield Wildcats. this floating helmet I've seen at the BYU store, and I think you can go online and order it.
Yep. I think that's true.
And you got it's a very sensitive thing. If I bump this table, that thing's going up.
And it's magnetic, and you have to have a little thing that sets it. Yeah. And then you pull the. It's pretty complicated.
I had one of these at the house, and my nephews were horsing around with it and broke it. But you know what young nephews do? They set it up as if they didn't break it.
Yeah.
And then they waited for me to come in and turn it on and find it broken.
Yep.
This one, however, as you can see, is as healthy as ever.
Yes, it is.
And I think it's awesome.
You cannot take
if you
your
stare
hand,
at it long enough, you get dizzy.
You can't do the magician thing, though, and run your hand over the top of it. It'll break the magnetic force.
Something bad happens.
It'll fall down. So.
Some headlines. Arizona State, the time has been announced for the November 23rd game. And I talked to our friends in Phoenix, and they're going to be on the show next week. They're surprised. 1:30 in the afternoon.
I'm surprised. I thought it'd be night
Mountain Time on ESPN. I'm glad it's in the afternoon because we're calling the men's basketball game that night. So there's going to be a conflict there. But BYU Sports Nation Game Day will start at 11:30 Mountain Time on BYU TV and ESPN Plus. The postgame show back on BYU TV when ESPN's done. Now, there was a quote from the Arizona State ticket office through our alumni rep. He told me today, that quote was, "You've wiped us out of our tickets." Don't you love to hear that? So it's going to be, the Sun Devils playing good. And then the Cougs are going to fill that stadium. And it's almost going to be like a bowl game coming up. But now we know the start, 1:30 Mountain Time on the 23rd.
Really interested in that game this week that Arizona State's playing. Arizona State's 7-2. But guess what? They're going on the road to play Kansas State, who's also 7-2. So they got a lot to think about before thinking about BYU, as does BYU, with Kansas coming to town. So, yeah, it'll be a fun game, and that's an old rivalry. And there's lots of BYU fans down in the Valley of the Sun.
So this new college football rankings will come out tomorrow. BYU was 9th last week, projected as the 4th highest P4 champion, which has them in a first-round bye in the Fiesta Bowl.
Right.
And now Miami, who was number 3 in that group, representing the ACC, they have been defeated, and so BYU technically should go to 3. Yeah, but they might sit at 9 still in the overall ranking.
I bet they move up to 7, just like they did in the AP.
In the AP poll.
Yeah. So I bet they move to 7, and they'll move ahead of Miami, which would put them number 3 in the rankings. So. Opponents left. We talked about Kansas this week, and then Arizona State the next week, and then BYU finishes up with Houston. So they're all winnable games, but you know what? All 3 teams have a lot of talent. And Kansas, they're just 3-6, but they've been close in a bunch of games. So this is not an easy pathway, but it's a pathway that BYU is very capable of winning. I especially like the fact that Kansas has to come and play on a 30-something degree day. Yeah. You realize that we're going to have to wear all kinds of clothes to do that outdoor pregame show.
The snow's supposed to stop. Snow's supposed to stop around noon. Let's hope it does.
Yeah, and it's a nighttime game. It's going to be cold.
Yeah, it's going to be.
And you and I don't we have a double headers the back-to-back Saturdays?
Yeah, we have basketball and football.
Football both Saturdays.
And we have football and basketball.
So, there you go.
There's a weekend for you.
Yeah, so then Arizona State down there, that's the one that scares me the most. And then Houston up here the last game of the season, that one doesn't scare me.
They all scare me. Because, they're in this league, I'll bet you Houston didn't scare Kansas State until they got beat by them. And I'll bet you Iowa State wasn't terribly terrified
by Kansas.
And then they got mowed out. Yeah. So I'm a
Houston right now is 4-5, and they travel to Arizona this week on Friday night. So they play Friday night, so everybody can watch them. So you can scout these next 2 teams. Watch Kansas go play at K-State and watch or Arizona State play at K-State and Houston play at Arizona if you want to scout BYU's last 2 opponents this week.
All right, we've got St. George on the stream, Corpus Christi, Texas, one of my mission cities, Saratoga Springs, Utah, North Texas. Let me tell you a North Texas story super quick. John Robinson, our friend, passed away today. He was UNLV's coach, USC's coach. We'll talk about it a little more later on. His first game was at North Texas when he came to UNLV. Mm-hmm. We broadcast that game.
Yep.
In Denton, Texas, back onto Channel 8 in Vegas for the first time an affiliate's ever put a UNLV football game on in prime time. It was a Thursday night. And I had a chance to grow real close with John Robinson over those years. And I've got a story coming out in the Deseret News on him and some of his BYU Utah type connections that you might not be aware of. But he exuded college football.
Yeah.
You just sit there and listen to him. And you're just like, just keep telling stories because
he was so fun.
You were it. He won a national title at USC, and We like him because he was first class.
Yeah, he treated you and I so well. We were young, well, we weren't that young at that time, but
we were a lot younger than we are now.
Yeah, we were a lot younger than now, and he was just so kind and gracious to us and gave us just unlimited access and taught us a lot of things, and we'll absolutely miss him. He's a great man. He used to tell us fun stories about John Madden.
Yeah, they were best friends.
Because he and John Madden were buddies. They grew up together.
They went to Catholic high school together.
He would tell us the funniest stories about John Madden, which I loved. So,
89 years old. We're going to miss John Robinson. These rankings then feed into these bowl projections.
Right.
We love doing the bowl projections because they're so nuts and out of this world compared to what world we thought we were going to be in.
You're supposed to win 4 games this year, Dave.
Yeah,
what are you talking about, bowl game?
That's right. So CBS, as of tonight, has BYU in the Sugar Bowl against the Texas-Tennessee winner.
Yeah, how about that?
Just think about that one for a moment.
Which one of those do you want?
I don't know.
I want Tennessee.
I just want to get there.
Give me Tennessee. So
24/7 Sports has BYU against Tennessee in the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah. And I think that's more likely. For some reason, I'm thinking that the Big 12's champion, whether they're third or fourth, is somehow tied into the Fiesta Bowl, which would be better for BYU. Because
that's the first Sugar Bowl thing I've seen.
I haven't seen that from anybody else. And Athlon has the Fiesta Bowl as well, but they have BYU versus Ohio State.
Now, Brett McMurphy has BYU in the Pop-Tarts Bowl against Washington State. He's got Colorado going. So he has Colorado beating BYU in the Big 12 championship. And that's possible. And
that's a possibility. Here's the thing. Like, we don't, BYU, if they win this week, which they need to, then they're almost assured to be in that Big 12 championship game.
If some weird things happen Saturday, they could actually clinch.
Right.
I believe, because everyone other than Colorado, BYU has 2 games on already.
Right.
They don't even play Colorado. So it doesn't really matter what Colorado does.
Colorado's irrelevant.
The top 2 spots go to Arlington.
Right. Now, here's a scenario that people have asked me about. If BYU goes undefeated into that Big 12 championship game, and let's say they face a Colorado team that continues to win and just has 2 losses and would be ranked. If BYU is to lose to a 10-2 Colorado in that college football or in that Big 12 championship game, in a close game, I believe BYU would go into that game ranked in the top 5. And so I think that even a close loss to Colorado in that game, Colorado would get the automatic bid. I think BYU stays in the top 12 and still goes to the college football playoff.
All right, I'm going with your thing on that. Eduardo from Chile is with us. So we got Chile, Singapore, and Philippines on the stream. David from Columbia, Maryland.
We always go for 5 continents, so come on, Japan. Where are you,
one
Corey?
of these days, Antarctica is going to blow
where
our
are
minds.
you? Yeah, penguins are going to watch us.
Somebody from maybe on a cruise ship could come and chime in from over in that area.
And Eduardo Estefan says, if we survive Utah, we can beat anybody, especially since Utah was playing out of their minds. It's hard, but it's doable. So there you go.
Jaden's from Payson, Utah on the stream. All right, let's dive into this football game because we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about. We're going to hear from Kalani in just a moment. Cougars beat the Utes 22-21. Even as we did the post-game show, I couldn't believe they won that game. I'm staring at the stats. We're talking about them, but it was such an out-of-sorts game for the offense, in sorts for the defense in the second half. And then it comes down to a field goal, and BYU beats Utah for the second straight time, and they win in Salt Lake for the first time since 2006. And you know what? It was awesome.
It was awesome.
It just changed. Yeah. I woke up Sunday morning on a few hours of sleep, and I'm going, you know what? What just happened? And that's just awesome. It was just great.
And the defense were heroes again in this game. In the second half, they pitched a shutout. Utah did not score a point in the second half. Not only did they not score a point, Utah enjoyed great field position that entire second half. They got the ball right near midfield multiple times, and BYU didn't even let them get into field goal range to even have an attempt on a field goal. The defense was lights out in that second half, and which is a good thing because they played one of the worst games they've played in terms of assignments in the first half of that game. Now in hindsight that I've watched the film, Utah's offense is not good enough to have scored any points on BYU if they do what they're supposed to do. And
we kept giving them free yards.
The emotion of that game, it is something. It's real. And we thought maybe it wouldn't be as big this year because they haven't played. Oh, boy. It had an impact. BYU, who's been one of the most assignment-sound defenses in the country week after week. Guys line up in the right spots. They're in the right gaps. They're doing their assignment. In that first half, you had guys lining up on the wrong side of the ball. You had guys on the wrong side of the defense. You had guys put in their exact right position by alignment and assignment to have interceptions that didn't execute their assignment. And in the first half, fortunately, they didn't give up too many big plays. But people have asked me, what amazing adjustments did Jay make at halftime? He made none. Utah didn't do anything that BYU didn't practice that week before. Everything that they had success with, BYU practiced over and over and over again. And so they just told the guys at halftime, listen, you have to calm down. You have to play within yourself. You got to get back to the way you've played all year long.
Get in your spot.
Get where you're supposed to be. Do your 111th. This has been one of the most consistent assignment-sound football teams in America. We don't know what that was in the first half. We don't need to change anything. Go out and play the way you know how to play. And guess what they did?
They went out and did it.
They went out and did it.
Shut them out.
They were right where they were supposed to be in the second half. They didn't make those errors, and they shut them down.
And Utah's defense was still just as good in the second half.
Yeah, and
they were tough. That's what they do.
We got to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
That's the best defense BYU's faced all year, and it's the best defense BYU will face all year. Well, I don't know who they play in the college football playoff.
Yeah,
but
we'll see.
But in Utah's defense, let's give them some credit. They were very good. Their blitz packages were good. They were physical. But, the BYU's defense was equally as good in that second half.
So before we talk about what happened after the game, here's what head coach Kalani Sitaki said today on the heels of the Utah game and ahead of Kansas. Let's listen to him for a couple of minutes.
I'm happy to get the win. What a great battle. It was one of those games that kind of fit in alignment with all the other games that we've been able to see that came down to the wire, and so worked out in our favor. But I thought it was a great battle between two teams, and a great rivalry. It's why it's such a special game, and it's why I'm excited that the game is going to be back, and it'll be back every year with us being the same conference. And the energy in that stadium was awesome. I thought all the Utah fans did a great job at creating that home field advantage. Also really appreciate all our BYU fans that came and were able to find tickets. That was a really cool game to see as much royal blue as we could in that stadium. But what a great atmosphere, great game, and really feel good about some of the things that we did in that game. Obviously, as a team, we didn't think we did our best consistently enough, but we did enough to get the win. And we knew that Utah would come out with there was a lot of uncertainties, one being who's going to play quarterback, what scheme they're going to do. And I thought the guys were able to just kind of feel it out a little bit and then settle down and just play football. Defensively, really proud of the adjustments made. The ability to get a shutout in the second half gave us that chance to get that win. And the offense did enough. Special teams was a definite positive for us. Getting turnovers was helpful as well. So winning the turnover battle and playing clean football helped us out. So it was tough sledding against that defense. It's a great defense. We knew that going into the game, and but glad that we were able to get the plays made in the last drive and get ourselves set up for that game-winning field goal. So looking forward to this next week, though, and excited about our team and our players. Just stay humble and stay hungry. We got to keep working. Glad that we got to enjoy the energy, the festivities, all that stuff, and came home and the entire rock section was here. Greeted us off the buses, which made us getting home and getting to bed a lot later than we anticipated. But we were able to get enough sleep, get to church, and enjoy the win. But now we got to get back to work and move on to the next one. So, as much fun as that game was, now we go back to our same same process of learning from the game, trying to find a way to get better and improving from it, and then now moving on to the next one and doing it with the ability of staying humble and staying hungry and getting back to work. So that's what we're going to do this week, and I'll take any questions you guys have.
So that's Kalani from this afternoon, reacting to Utah and kind of setting the table for Kansas. And it was after the game, and that became a whole nother thing. Utah's athletic director, Mark Harlan, not only was he on the field and got a penalty flag thrown on him for yelling at the refs after
in the middle of a play,
in the middle of that kickoff. So he goes to the media room and and sits down. Everyone's rolling, and then he proceeds to trash the officiating, especially on that holding call on 4th and 10 with 1:35 to go. BYU got a first down, and it allowed them to continue to drive down the field and kick the winning field goal. Harlan said, quote, "This game was absolutely stolen from us. We won this game. Someone else stole it from us." He was fined $40,000 by the Big 12 and reprimanded. He issued a vague statement on Sunday. We won't call it really an apology. The word sorry usually has to show up.
It didn't show up
in one of those.
Or the word apologize.
What a bad luck for the two schools which had just launched the Rival Right campaign, and then the athletic director takes a hard left. I wrote about it in the Deseret News today. You can see that at Deseret.com. But we were stunned. We were live on our postgame show when we saw the comments, and we're like, what gives?
We're going, what is going on?
A 20-year-old might say something like that.
I've been involved in college athletics for 40 plus years. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It was crazy. And he just, lost his sense of what was right and what was wrong there for a bit. And I've never seen an athletic director go into the press conference and sit down and take questions or make a statement. That's the coach comes in and players come in. Have you ever seen an athletic director just show up and sit down at the press conference to make a proclamation like that? It was he needed a timeout. The whole thing was unprecedented, and the bad part about it was, like, most coaches are smart enough to not, they'll go into a press conference and say, well, I don't know about that call. I have to look at it on film, because until you look at, like, he was there on the sideline. And he just put all of his, I'm all in on this was a terrible call. And now that call's been reviewed over and over again by experts, they're like, yeah, it absolutely was a holding call. Yeah. Absolute holding call. And Terry McCauley, who's an official that's NBC's rules analyst and also does work with Amazon Television on rules, 20-year NFL official, has officiated 3 Super Bowls. Now he's retired from doing that, but he's a rules analyst. He officiated college football for years. He came out and said that was an obvious foul, not even close. And then some other people, they just kept pushing the issue out on Twitter. And then Joel Klatt came out and said, oh, but it just wasn't consistent with the way they called it the rest of the game. So Terry said, really? So he went and got the All-22, which he has access to because of his job, and reviewed every pass play in the game and said there was not another holding call even close that should have been called in that game. So the refs were consistent. They called the bad holding foul. They didn't call other plays because there wasn't, and kind of corrected everybody. And yet Utah's still going all crazy on this thing. So
yeah, but you know who's not going crazy? Everyone that's got that video on their phone, they're like, yeah, okay,
that was holding
let's
us.
Talk about something else.
Kudos to Terry McCauley for kind of stepping up and going, what's all the fuss about? This
a hold's a hold.
Yeah, and so who are we gonna trust? I trust Terry McCauley on this one with his analysis.
So Val Hale was the athletic director at BYU years ago, and he's on the show coming up. And you know what? He's not at BYU anymore, so we can say what he wants.
Yeah,
so we got a lot of questions for him.
I'm anxious to hear what he thought of that.
Yeah, because he's been in that rivalry, and he's been in moments where BYU got jobbed by officials, and there's things you do and there's things you don't do.
And here's the other thing. Like, you remember when the face mask happened, that wasn't a face mask on BYU, and that clearly showed that it wasn't a face mask. And we were all saying, we were there with Dave Nixon and Brian Logan and all these guys and Austin Collie, and we're all going, well, that's the call's the call. But BYU, you let them go down and score a touchdown after that. Why didn't you hold them to a field goal? You failed BYU defense. The worst thing that should have happened would have been a field goal. Nobody at Utah is saying, oh, but BYU did get the ball with a 1:30 left on, and had to drive 60 yards with no timeouts to kick a field goal. That's where Utah failed.
Yeah.
That's where they failed. They had every opportunity to stop that last drive. The game didn't end on the holding call.
The game was absolutely stolen from us. So you know what I wrote about in the paper? Yeah. I said, to play off Harlan stolen the thing is, when you shoplift. If you shoplift at noon or you shoplift 5 minutes before the store closes, it's still shoplifting.
Right.
Yeah, and there's a penalty for that.
Yeah.
If you get away with it, more power to you. If you get caught, you go to jail.
Well, and Terry McCauley's point on his thing was, it's an obvious foul. It's always a foul. Doesn't matter whether it's the last 2 minutes of the game. Doesn't matter whether it's the beginning of the game. It's a foul. And Trevor Maddich came out today, ESPN's analyst, former BYU guy that came on Sports Nation, and he said the other thing is that the receiver that was held was the primary receiver on the route, and Utah was in a defense without help over the top. If the DB doesn't grab him, it's probably a touchdown pass.
Yeah.
So it's probably a good penalty by the DB And then it was on the defense to step up and get a stop. And they didn't.
So Val's up here in just a few minutes. Hang with us. A couple of stream updates. Timothy in from Perth, Australia.
There we go.
Kevin,
Australia's in the house.
Gilbert, Arizona. Neil from Tucson, Arizona. Expect both of you at the ball game on the 23rd. Tony from Prudhoe Bay, Alaska on the stream tonight. So let's talk about what we liked real quick, because there were a lot of things. Number one on the list, we liked Will Ferrin's field goals. 23, 33, and 44.
Yeah. All the special teams was very good again, but Big Game Bill, he came through just like he always does. That's his new nickname. Yeah. That's what, and who I think, and he didn't name it himself.
Well, Jake told us on the post game.
Retzlaff called him Big Game Bill. I like it. I'm sticking with Big Game Bill from now on for Will Ferrin.
Let's do that. We also like the second half defense. 79 total yards allowed to the Utes and no points.
Yeah, even with great field position, they were phenomenal in the second half. And we love that Retzlaff engineered that final drive. Started on their own 9, finished with a 44-yard field goal. They didn't panic. They really did a good job, and receivers made great plays. What about Chase Roberts' catch?
Oh, yeah. That catch was better than the one-hander against Arkansas because of what was riding.
Yeah.
And he had a clean shot with the one hand, which was phenomenal. This one he had, I still don't know how he caught it.
I don't know how he caught it.
But he caught it, and they reviewed it, and he still caught it.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Okay, here's what we didn't like, and this will resonate on the stream as well. We didn't like the fact that BYU was so sluggish in getting plays in, and the substitution patterns, which cost them timeouts and delays because of how the rule allows if you sub, they get a sub, and they get a sub at whatever speed they want to, it seems.
Right.
And that was frustrating, especially in the first half, but most of the game.
Yeah, and we talked about this on the postgame show. I hate the rule. I think the rule's got to be changed, and Utah has taken more advantage of it than anybody in college football. When you sub, what they do is they leave their defensive lineman that they're going to sub for on the field. He turns his back to the sideline. They jog somebody as slow as he can possibly jog off the sideline all the way in, tap him on the shoulder.
Yeah, we watched it. Drove us nuts.
Then he jogs off. And there's no timing rule in place. So if you sub with 24 seconds left, they literally can run out a 24-second clock and have to take a timeout. Here's the problem. It's the rule. It's not Utah's problem. That's brilliant of Utah to do that. I'm not getting on Utah. I think they're smart for doing it. The rule has to change, but that's the rule. So you can't substitute.
Yeah, adjust.
You got to. You know they're going to do that, so there's no excuse for not accounting for that.
So that bugged
and you know
everybody.
what you don't do out there? You don't substitute in the 2-minute offense, especially with that rule.
No.
And so you just keep whatever person, you get the personnel you're best at, and you have a 2-minute offense designed around that personnel, and you just leave them in.
801 West Valley can see my notes from here on the stream. It says, clock management. Didn't like clock management, especially at the end of the first half. It's just like, has anyone done this before? It was really strange. And even the announcers on ESPN were like, hey, doesn't anyone know?
We were like, clock it. And then guys were changing sides of the field instead of clocking it. They also had a substitution during that 2-minute, which cost them some time.
Yeah.
And they were, they have to do a better job. And I know Kalani was upset about it. And I know that probably will not happen again.
You know what else we didn't like?
Practice a little more on that.
We didn't like that poor pass protection by the running backs. And I watched it again today. They just got mowed down. It didn't matter if it was LJ or Rapati. They were going backwards the whole time. And I don't think Jake ever got settled one time.
Yeah, and
that's got to get better.
Yeah, they've got to do a better job, where they're going to have to play Moa or somebody that'll step up and take people on in pass situations. So the other thing that we didn't like the lack of execution on the defense in the first half.
No.
But what we loved was for them to turn it around, get their minds right, and execute almost perfectly in the second half. So there was a lot to like. I'll tell you what I do like. This team is good enough and plays together enough where they don't point fingers and they don't go off the rails, that playing maybe the worst half of football they've played all year, they still came back and beat their rival.
Yeah.
Great teams
like that.
Figure out a way to do that. So that's my favorite thing about the whole game.
So on last week's show, you announced your keys to beating Utah. And we're going to follow up, because that's what we do on this show. We say stuff, and then we follow up on it. Your number one key to beating the Utes was win the turnover battle. Check. BYU had
+2.
forced 2 and didn't turn it over at all. And they kind of got a fumble at the end. So in theory, there was a fumble recovery on that kickoff.
+3.
So +3. Yeah. Shut down Utah's run game. What are you doing on that?
Yeah, I think they did overall, because that's what Utah was relying on. They held them to 152 yards, 4.9 yards a carry. I'd like to see them do a little bit better. I'm giving them what do we call that? Just an even.
A dash?
A dash. I'm not giving him a plus.
Your third key, a quick passing game, used the short passes to set up the run. I don't know if they set up anything. It just was a weird flow.
And Utah had the ball a lot in that first half. They could do a better job. They did hit Chase Roberts on a couple, and they hit a couple quick outs to Darius Laster. I'm giving him a dash again because they did it a little, but I think they could have neutralized Utah's blitz a lot better by getting the ball out quicker. And part of the problem was he kept getting balls batted down on quick throws. And part of that is protection. When you're going to quick throw, if your running back's in the protection, he's got to go up and meet the guy at the line of scrimmage. So I'm giving him 2 dashes and a plus. But you know what? The reason win the turnover battle is always number one is because it overrides a lot of stuff.
Yes, it does.
And being +2 in meaningful time and being +3 overall, that makes a difference in every game. Chris
Bosman's key, she's the Utah alumni director, was on the show last week. So we're talking about the food drive, and they're busy kind of getting the final numbers to what they raised. And we'll have an update for you next week. But Chris gave her key. The key for Utah was red zone conversions into touchdowns. They went 3 for 3. They just didn't get any in the second half.
Yeah, both teams were 3 for 3.
We'll give her a check on that. And then Michael Johansson, the BYU alumni director, said, consistency, know your role, play your 1/11th. What did you think?
First half, definitely not. Second half, great job. So what do you do?
We give him a half check?
We give him a check in the second half and a minus in the first half.
Second half check. That's better than a first half check and a second half minus. After further review, by the way, tomorrow at 5 o'clock Mountain Time on BYU TV and ESPN, we're going to break down all the big plays.
And I'll give you...
And we'll look at the holding call and the face mask call and all that stuff.
And we'll talk about that protection. And by the way, there's something that Utah does that I just picked up on and I've talked about that I have not talked about. We're going to cover tomorrow at AFR. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't do it because it's going to give the teams that are playing Utah a little heads up on something that Utah does defensively that BYU didn't counter that people should be doing to them. We'll talk about it on AFR tomorrow.
We'll revisit the Big 12 standings and this week in the Big 12 a bit later on. We say hi to Nate on the stream from South Carolina tonight. But it is our pleasure here to introduce our first guest, the former athletic director at BYU, author of the new book, Out of the Blue. It is a pleasure, and Miranda's going to go right back over there and hit this button to welcome Val Hale to the Wise Guys. We had to get this show like up to par the last 2.5 years before we could have you come in, but we're rolling now, and it's great to have you here.
Hey, what a pleasure to be here with you guys. I've known you guys for a long time, and we go back a ways. We've got a lot we can talk about.
Val, I think you and I, like, how many years ago? It's like 40 years.
Yeah, I started as an intern in the sports information office in 1980, Jim McMahon's era, and then you came along. And
I came in 81, so.
Yep. I still maintain if Blaine had been put in the 1985 Citrus Bowl, was it Florida Citrus Bowl?
Yeah, we played Ohio State.
I think Bosco was hurt at that time. I think we'd win that game going away.
I'd like to think so.
I agree with you. I'm going to say it now.
It ruined my day. 10-7 loss to start.
We needed to be able to like kind of run around at the quarterback spot.
Yep.
Robert and I always tells me whenever I talk to Robert, he's like, dude, you're just way ahead of your time. Like your style, he's like, right now, you'd start in most places because you can run around and move, and that's what everybody's looking for now as a dual threat guy. And we see all these, like BYU's going to face one this week. And so I was just too early. My skill set was too early for the game. It fits way better today.
So Val's got a new book out. It's called Out of the Blue, and we're going to talk about it tonight. But our theme for this interview is Out of the Blue. And so let's start with this one, which is as out of the blue as out of the blue gets. What do you make of this football season?
Well, it's kind of like last year's basketball season.
Yeah.
Nobody went into the season with any expectations, and they exceeded everybody's expectations. Same thing happened in football this year. Everybody was talking about 4 wins and no bowl game, and then lo and behold, here they are, 9-0. And, they've got that magic that the really good teams have. I mean, you look back at the 84 season, the games that came down to the wire.
Yeah, there were a lot of nail biters. Yeah. Wyoming, Air Force, it's like Utah even.
And there's some similarities in that we didn't have high expectations that year because we had so many great players from the year before that leave. Now, BYU's expectations were because they were not good last year.
And weren't even ranked going into the pit game.
So we finished the year before ranked number 7 in the country. So once we won a couple of games, we jumped right back up there.
Yeah.
So that was the advantage we had over this team where they came off a struggling season. And so just completely out of the blue, right?
Yeah, really has been. But it's been a delight. What a great year to be a Cougar fan, with the football team and the
Basketball
expectations
and all
for
that.
basketball.
Yeah.
My goodness. I mean, basketball dominated the off-season news. When does that ever happen?
Yeah, it was actually good because I think it let Kalani just kind of put his pieces together, fly under the radar, and come in with a lot of momentum into this season. We were talking to you before we came on the air because you got here early about this whole BYU-Utah game reaction and the Mark Harlan, Utah's AD, comments after the game. You were the athletic director at BYU, and you've been an athletic administrator for most of your career. What are your thoughts on all that went on after the game?
You know that emoji with the big wide eyes?
Yeah.
I think every athletic director in the country had that exact
Did
expression.
they text that to each other?
when
Like,
they saw
what
it.
in the world?
Yeah. Because, I mean, something like that just doesn't happen. I mean, it goes against everything athletic directors stand for. I'm sure athletic directors yell at officials. Chris Hill a few years ago,
Right.
Behind the curtain was yelling. I got into it a little bit with a few officials coming off the field once. Just, we had a few words. It's kind of part of the game, but to actually go up and sit unannounced, go up and seat yourself in front of the press and make a statement like that surprised me for three reasons. Number one, it just surprised me that he did it. Mm-hmm. Number two, it surprised me that his president had just come out with this
Rival right.
And number three, it surprised me that he attacked the Big 12.
Yeah, that was crazy.
It's one thing to complain about the officials, but to take a shot at the Big 12, I was like, are you kidding me? This is your first year. And so it really caught me off guard. I didn't see that coming.
What do you think happens next? Do you think
him?
it's over? I mean, there's a fine, there's a reprimand.
I am still waiting for Taylor Randall to weigh in, the president of Utah, University of Utah.
Right.
I know him. He's a friend of mine, great guy. And because he was so public in his campaign, the rival right campaign, I can't imagine that they would just sit and let this go. I would expect him to say something.
The university will probably make a statement.
I would
at
think
some
so.
point. Yeah,
Because he made a statement, but what do you think of that?
It was not an apology. That's what I think. I mean, it was the most non-statement thing I've seen. He tried to give BYU a compliment and everything, but he did not apologize in the least in that statement.
So let me ask you this. So Max Hall's comments have been infamous. You were here through all that. Tyler Huntley had his thing. Over the years, kids have said stuff that have stuck in the rivalry. Here's the first time, and maybe a coach has said something, but here's the first time an administrator has come on and said, someone stole that. We had it and it was stolen. How many years is that soundbite going to live?
It'll live in infamy. We're kind of to the point where we've forgotten about Wayne Howard in the late 70s.
Right.
BYU holds on every play. That was his mantra.
Yeah,
and then
I remember that.
We're going to drill BYU. Give me 2 or 3 years and we're going to drill BYU. And, he was very vocal, and that lived for a while, but it's kind of died off now. But this is going to live in infamy.
So, sometimes you expect coaches, you see coaches get a little hot about something, they'll make a comment and say, I shouldn't say anything. I almost feel like when you get to the administrator level, when you're an athletic director or a president, part of your job is to have a calmer head, to kind of be that, to calm the coach down, to say, hey, let's be careful what we say after this. That's what surprised me the most, just because I feel like the role of an athletic director is to just kind of keep things level and make sure that your coaches don't say something crazy. And is that part of the role of an AD in your opinion?
Absolutely. Glenn Tuckett used to say the athletic director is coach of the coaches, and really needs to be someone who sets that example. And, I have to admit, I got a little heated at times, and you have to take this in context. So here's Mark Harlan. I say in my book, athletic director is a great job when your team's winning, and it's a lousy job when your team's losing. Now put yourself in his shoes. Utah's predicted to win, and they coming into the season thinking, hey, we're going to be in the national championship playoff. And now all of a sudden he's just lost the 5th straight game. And he's got to be under tremendous pressure. He can't go anywhere without people, grabbing him and saying, hey, what's going on? And I have the solution and you need to do this. And it just probably just built up and then finally boiled over.
Yeah.
It's tremendous pressure.
We'll see where that one goes. Here's another squirrely issue we want to talk to you about. 2001, BYU goes back, beats Mississippi State, 12-0. And then the BCS says you're not good enough for us. Releases you, the Cougars go play Hawaii and then play in the Motor City Bowl, I think it was. So now we're here in 2024. I think they were talking eye test back then, and the first rankings come out last week, and what are they talking about? Well, the eye test. Well, Miami, I know they haven't played anyone near as good as BYU, but the eye test is this, or Indiana for that matter, and they're both good teams. Miami just got beat. But as we move week to week now, with a new poll coming out tomorrow, what kind of respect do you think BYU is going to get now that they're in the Big 12 with no excuses to go, well, you're not us? Are they going to get a fair shake?
Don't kid yourself. They're not going to give BYU a break. They are all about trying to keep power and money in those conferences, and I don't see them giving BYU a break at all.
Well, it's what's crazy is they're in one of the conferences now. Well, you were WAC, Mountain West, whatever, and now you're like, well, actually, we're a Power 4, and that you still get that Heisman push back. Well, you're not over here with us.
I don't see them cutting any slack to BYU. I think they'll come up with every excuse. The best tweet of the night last night and the night before was from Spencer Cox, the governor. Did you see his tweet?
I didn't see it.
Oh, it was so great. He came out and said something to the effect that, BYU was so close. They almost got one of those quality losses that the championship committee values so much.
How true is that?
Yeah.
They're sitting there talking about quality losses for other people, and BYU just
doesn't
keeps
have
winning,
a loss, right?
And it's like, oh, that's okay. You don't have a quality loss.
And yet, you see the strength of schedule. They're still number 2 in the country, and strength of schedule wins.
Yep.
And it's just how are they not higher than they are already? But I think they'll move up to 7 this week because they almost have to, and they're starting to get pressure. It's up to BYU. If they, and I'm going to ask you, I gave my opinion. If they're undefeated going into the Big 12 championship game, and let's assume they play at Colorado, and let's say Colorado stays clean between now and then. So Colorado's ranked 20th right now. Colorado probably moves up to 15 or 14 by then. If BYU loses in a close game to a number 15 Colorado, and Colorado gets that automatic bid, that 3 or 4, they'd probably be the 4 seed at that point. Does BYU get one of the other at-larges? Do they stay in the top 12?
I think it's a long shot. I think it's possible, but I think it's a long shot. And, like I say, I don't see them looking at BYU and trying to do us any favors. One of the most embarrassing things I ever saw happen to Lavelle Edwards, I can't remember if it was 2001 or 96, but we were in New York City for the National Football Foundation banquet, and they were having the big announcement at one of the, probably ABC there in New York, and they invited Lavelle to come over with the other coaches that were in consideration for the BCS championship bowls. They came and picked us up in a nice car, took us over there. We're standing around with all these coaches and VIPs, and they announced the teams, and BYU wasn't one of them. And all of the people just left, and they left Lavelle standing there. So here's Lavelle. We were all hopeful that we were going to have a shot at it, and Lavelle's just standing there. And everybody just, whew, and nobody said, hey, Lavelle, great season. Sorry, feel bad for you. They just went everywhere but towards him. And we had to go out and get a taxi and go back to the hotel. And it was just really disappointing to see Lavelle, be kind of disliked that by that group. It really ticked me off.
One of the adventures you can read in this book, Out of the Blue, written by Val Hale, former BYU athletic director and the author of the new book, Val's on Wise Guys, presented by Brady Plus and distributed by the Deseret News. Another Out of the Blue theme tonight with our interview. Kevin Young, the men's basketball team, they're 2-0 out of the gate. They put a roster together that we haven't seen ever, if not ever, in years got to go back to Danny Ainge's roster at least, and those weren't freshmen, right, that got to the Elite Eight. What has impressed you the most by what you've seen out of basketball?
Well, beyond just the recruiting, the ability to recruit these type of players, it's just been fun to see the athleticism and the the fluidity of some of these guys. They're just another level. You watch Yegor Demon come down the floor, 6'9" guard, and he's so fluid and so just in control. And he can pass the ball, take it to the hoop, and I really think this team's going to benefit when Dallin Hall comes back.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a huge addition to the team. I remind people that last year's team had 2 weeks in Europe to play against some really good talent, work out the kinks.
Bond.
So they came back and they were ready to play. This team is still learning, still growing, still coming together. But I think they're going to be very formidable. I think that people shouldn't expect them to go undefeated. I think they're going to have some lumps, take some lumps, but they're going to be really fun to watch. They are fun to watch. They just need to make their threes and their free throws.
Yeah, that was the problem the other night in the game.
I think they'll shoot better on Wednesday for the free throw line. I'd be surprised if
there'll be a focus on that for sure. Here's another out of the blue that you and I, none of us could have ever imagined. Wasn't even on our radar back in the early 80s when you and I started together. Athletes are getting paid.
Oh.
So this whole NIL thing, talk about out of the blue, what's your thought on the future of college athletics with this giant NIL thing hanging over it now?
I can't imagine that it's going to continue in this present state with NIL and the transfer portal both the way they are. It just makes coaching almost ridiculous because coaches spend all their time out raising money, and then they also spend their time recruiting their own players to stay in the program, and they're out looking at other players out around the country who may be dissatisfied. And it's just completely changed the recruiting game. It's changed the way you coach your team, because if you get mad at somebody or say something that ticks them off, they're like, okay, I'm gone. And they're out the door. Or they have a great year and, they start shopping themselves around.
People always just talk about NIL. Nobody really talks about the fact that the transfer rules changing have as big an impact on the game as the NIL. So this ability to just transfer as many times as you want without penalty, which is a bigger impact, the NIL or that?
Well, I think if you change the transfer rules, it impacts the NIL significantly. To have them both is like the perfect storm. It really has been. And so they need to get a handle on it somehow. They need to somehow either restrict the number of times you can transfer or the time. The problem is the rules were so strict before that they said, okay, we've got to change them, and the pendulum swung all the way back the other way. And now it's just almost something that, as a coach, there are a lot of coaches that are quitting because they don't want to deal with it.
I think Nick Saban, and he said, I don't want to have anything to do with this. Now, there are those that say, well, guess what? NIL is, and the transfer portal is the reason that Alabama and Georgia aren't just dominating anymore, because they're backup guys who are as good as anybody in the country had, that are looking at guys that are going, wait a minute, the guy that's starting's only 2 years in front of me. I'm only going to play 2 years. I'm going to go start for Ole Miss.
Yep.
And they transferred out. So now all of a sudden Ole Miss has Alabama and Georgia talent. LSU has Alabama and Georgia talent. Indiana has Ohio State and Michigan talent. So there is one benefit of NIL, and that's the only one I can really think of. And the players should get some money.
I agree. And I was watching, I think it was Ole Miss last Saturday on TV, and the announcers were talking about how they needed to get tougher, so they went out and basically bought linemen to come in on the offensive and defensive line. They had to upgrade, so they went out. It used to be the SEC, it was under the table. It was happening.
Now it's on the table.
Now it's not even hid. It's just, and people are pointing the finger at BYU.
Yeah.
BYU.
How dare you guys do that?
Yeah. And we learned that BYU's not going out and getting in a bidding war for folks because they're selling a little bit more than that, but they're competitive. We've talked to Kevin Young about it and others on this show, some of our NIL folks on the show. But we can say it. NIL, transfer portal, the ability to recruit, all of that in combined. BYU never had Kansas talent. They do right now. Yep. BYU has Kansas talent on the basketball team.
Absolutely.
They have Duke and North Carolina talent on the basketball team. That's crazy.
And they're going to get some more.
Yep.
And some they're actually better than the ones they got.
Yeah, it's
going to be
crazy to me.
It's going to be interesting. But what it also does is I'm thinking of the movie Blue Chips and the book Blue Chips with Nick Nolte as the coach, old school, back in the day before UTEP won their title, that kind of stuff. And he went out and couldn't compete, and he went out and got some guys. And now the way he got those guys is completely legal.
Yeah.
And Jerry Tarkanian's rolling in his grave. He was just ahead of his time. But it does allow a team to go, I got boosters, I have finances, I can go buy my way into the game when I wouldn't have a chance any other way.
And it's especially valuable in basketball because basketball, you have one or two players you can win. Look at Larry Bird, Indiana State. Whoever heard of Indiana State? You get a Larry Bird or somebody like that, and you can make a huge difference. So you go out and buy one player, and you're in the money.
Mark Few has been able to build a competitive program at Gonzaga with one or two marquee players per year and role players around them. They've been to Final Fours and championship games.
Yep.
So you're exactly right.
Great example.
Mahanrai is with us from Jakarta, Indonesia. Good to have you here.
How many continents are we up to right
Kenny
now?
from Kenny Twitchell from North Carolina is on the stream. Browns Valley, California is with us. How about this live stream stuff? I mean, we connect with fans all over the world.
I love this podcast world. What an amazing thing.
And if you have access to what people want, they listen, they participate. Santa Rosa, California, in with us, and we love it because we worked 30 years just to prepare us for this live stream show, right? Because they go, I know those guys. I don't know if they know what they're talking about, but I know them, and so then they listen. So let's talk about your book. Out of the Blue is what it's called, written by Val Hale. How did you come up with the title?
I was just thinking of a title and what goes with blue, and it came to mind, and I thought, well, that fits.
You're saying it just came out of the blue?
It just came out of the blue. It did.
Yeah.
So what do we learn in this? And I've read it and love it. What do you want the BYU fan to glean from this?
Well, when over the years, I talk to my friends and I tell them stories, and they say to me, you know what, you need to write a book. You need to put those stories down. The biggest challenge was deciding what to put in it and what to leave out. I could have done 4 or 5 different versions of the book or different volumes, but I decided to go with what goes on behind the scenes, kind of with an athletic director, things that fans don't necessarily see. And so I thought that would be something that fans would enjoy. And so I got home from my mission and had time to write, so I sat down and started writing. And it was really fun to go back and look at journals and read newspaper articles and just put something together. And I figured it would be we're the 100th year of BYU football, and I know there are other books out there, but I thought this would be a fun time to get this out. And Christmas is a great time for a stocking stuffer for the BYU fan in your family, and so I started to be tech savvy, and I came up with a website, www.outofthebyublue.com, and started selling this on Amazon, Kindle, and one of these days I'm going to get over and do the audio recording. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Are you going to narrate it yourself
Yes,
then?
I'll do it
That'd be
myself.
great.
Yeah.
Not everything out of the blue has always been positive, right? Yeah. And in 2004, Gary Croton, he pushed out, asked to resign. Some players had run amok in the program. There were internal problems there. You were the AD at the time, and ended up being part of the collateral damage that happened with these players running amok. How close did BYU come during that time to just saying, we're just going to pull the plug on athletics? Was that ever a consideration?
It was a concern to me. I think so. I worried about it a little bit and expressed my concern. The last chapter of the book tells about that fateful time, and it was kind of hard to write, and I tried to be upbeat. I was always upbeat and not critical of the administration for making those decisions. I felt like the day that they asked me to be athletic director, I said to Fred Skousen, I'll do it on one condition. The minute you don't want me in this role anymore, you just say the word and I'll be gone the next morning. And I said that because I had seen so many coaches come and go, that got fired. Yeah. And a lot of them went out kicking and screaming and angry and trying to find places for people who, you don't want to fire, but you want to find a place for them. I didn't want to be that person. So I said, the minute you don't want me anymore, just tell me and I'm gone. That was why it was a little bit surprising that I walk in and, they say in 2 hours we're having a press conference to announce that you and Elaine Michaelis, which also shocked me, we're not renewing your contract. Well, there's 66 years of BYU service between the two of us, and we were like, wow.
It shocked all of us.
Yeah. So anyway, but I think my personal opinion, and I never asked them why it happened, but my personal opinion was it was collateral damage from the honor code issues.
And I think adding that in your book, this isn't a cotton candy book. You put a big mouthful of cotton candy and it just disappears. There's stuff in there. It's your experiences. There were good experiences. There were some fun ones with your interactions with some of the guys. And then there were some that weren't great that I thought you were pretty delicate in marching through there. You could have said a whole bunch more stuff. But I think you painted the picture of your journey out of the blue, which I think was good. Jared, by the way, on the stream from Terre Haute, Indiana, says thanks for the shout out. Indiana State's home of in Terre Haute. Also on the line, Illinois, Spare, Vaughn, Alaska. I think I'm saying that right. Boulder City, Fresno, and many, many others. There's a Go Utes on the board. Hey, we welcome all kinds of fans.
West Valley says, what years was Valor AD? What was this span?
Well, I started in athletics. I played in 1975, if you use the word played very liberally. In 1980, I was an intern in the sports information office. And then in 82, when the stadium was expanded, they hired me to be the first athletic marketing and publications coordinator. I did that for 5 years. And then Dave's father, Dale McCann, recruited me to come over and work with the Cougar Club.
That's when I met you.
And in a minute, I'd like to talk about that. And then I became assistant athletic director in 1989. I did that for 10 years. And then from 99 to 04, I was the athletic director.
Now, my folks had 10 kids. And so you're in there working with a Cougar Club. And tell me, did you not at least one time just go, let all his kids run in here and run amok, go get sodas. Next thing you know, they're wearing the new shirts. We felt like we owned the place.
It was great.
And it was a fun atmosphere.
And I remember you at the time were the up-and-coming superstar broadcaster. It was fun, and your dad was very proud.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but that was the up-and-coming time.
Let me tell you about Dale McCann. Dale was head of the Cougar Club and had really brought the Cougar Club along by that time. And Dale was always trying to create new traditions and find ways to improve the program. He didn't report to the athletic director at that time. He was reported to, I think, Ron Hyde, who was the advancement vice president. One of his things that he really focused on was getting BYU fans to wear school colors. It used to drive him crazy and me crazy to go to the games and look up into the stands and see all these people.
A hodgepodge.
It was a hodgepodge. Dale Murphy was invited to serve on the Cougar Club board when he retired from baseball. Yeah. And one of our meetings, we're talking about ways to get the fans excited about wearing blue. And he said, when we retired, we came back to Provo, we bought our tickets, we went out and bought our BYU gear. We went to the game and looked around, and we were the only ones in our section. It made us so self-conscious to be wearing royal blue BYU gear. Yeah. And so your dad, he pushed hard to get people to do that, to wear the blue. We gave out free shirts. We tried doing all kinds of things. And it wasn't until 1999 that we decided to go with the navy blue. And we did it because BYU was probably dead last in merchandise sales. Yeah. We sold more pink BYU gear in the bookstore than royal blue.
Wow. Interesting.
And so we switched to the navy, And
Which I love. I love the Navy.
Well,
that's the Navy right there.
I got the Navy, but I've got Navy.
And I like the Royal too. Yeah, that's
so
Royal.
I got Navy and
you got
Royal.
both going there.
So what happened, I tell the story in the book. So what happened is our sales went dramatically upward and people started wearing the Navy. But like always happens, pretty soon people start saying, thinking retro. They see something Royal and say, that's kind of cool. And so the Royal came back with a vengeance. And it's great to see people wearing royal blue because I love to see it on game day.
Yeah.
But it took going to that Navy to
kind
get
of
people to
kickstart
wear
it and jumpstart the whole process. Yeah.
But your father would be smiling in heaven now.
Because now
when
they
you go
all
to-
wear their colors.
Everybody's wearing their BYU gear. That was one of his passions and desires.
One of the great Val Hale dad stories in our family, and you'll remember this because it's not a story we really talk about, but so you guys are over in Laramie and he has a kidney stone.
Oh, yes, in the hotel room.
and you're going to take him to the hospital. He's like, I'm not going to die in a Laramie hospital. Just let's get out of here. And he got back to Utah to deal with it. But yeah, that was to be in Laramie is one thing. To be in Laramie at night with a kidney stone. But he was sure glad that you were there to save him.
I thought he was going to die. He was in so much pain. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Thanks for reminding me.
I'm glad it's not in the book.
There's lots of questions. One of the questions, which is an interesting one, one of the people in the chat said, are they ever going to expand the stadium? Like, would they ever fill the corners in or put another deck on? Or is 65,000 enough?
I doubt it. I mean, look what's happened in the Marriott Center. The Marriott Center's gone from 22,700 to 18,000, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And to be able to always have a sellout, I think is better than to expand it and then have games when you've got 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 empty seats. I think they'll keep it about that same size. I don't know that they'll ever fill in the corners.
Maybe just jack the prices up.
I was just looking at this behind you here.
The old.
And I talk in the book about the original plan to expand the stadium. And I have a chapter in there about facilities, but the original plan was to actually put decks on the top.
Yeah.
You cantilever it over the current the east and west stands. And Provo City, some residents complained about it, and then
About the height.
The height, and then ultimately, I think they had some geological issues they had to deal with that made it. When the bids came in, they were expecting something like I want to say 12 million, and they came in at 17 million, and they said, nope, we're going to go back to the drawing board.
Back to the drawing board.
That's what they came up
They
with.
came up with that. I played in my first season in the old configuration with just the temporaries in the end zones. And
The
then
track around it.
And then my second season in the new.
Yeah.
So I got to be in both. And this new stadium's awesome.
It is awesome.
Leander, Texas on the stream, Washington, Utah, Idaho Falls as well. And keep them coming. We'll try to recognize all your cities around the country, around the world tonight on the Wise Guys. Let's roll out. You ready with 5 questions? For Val Hale, 5 questions is presented by Strategy Square, delivering connection, clarity, and confidence in business and marketing strategies, owned and operated by a BYU alum who's helping Wise Guys conquer the world.
And, Val has a lot of stuff in the book, but none of this is in the book. So
None of this is in the book.
You're going to get to know him a little bit better. Your favorite sports movie?
That would be Rudy.
Rudy.
Nice. I love Rudy.
You didn't even hesitate.
I met the real Rudy,
Yeah.
and when we were serving our mission in Los Angeles, I invited him to come down and do a fireside, and he came down to Los Angeles and spoke to the people. It was great.
It's awesome.
Yeah, maybe people I think we've talked about this before. Dave and I have had a chance to do some interviews with Rudy, but Rudy's joined the church.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's a member. Dave and I we did an interview with him on the field at Notre Dame, and he came out, and the whole end of the stadium recognized that it was him, and they started going, Rudy, and I got goosebumps when they were doing that. It was crazy.
Another little thing about that, when we played Notre Dame back there at one of our games, I think it may have been the first one we played there in '94 or something, they were filming Rudy, and they had pictures where the cameras would come up over the edge of the stadium and pan the audience, and they announced, we're filming a movie, just be aware, and it was kind of cool.
Wow. Was that the coldest game you and I have ever done?
Yes, it
that
was.
Notre Dame BYU game.
Oh, yeah.
Dave and I were freezing.
Steve Cleveland was mission president, and he was on our pregame show. He's down there in his suit and trench coat. We're bundled up
where
like
we had like big puffy coats on, and we were still freezing.
And then, and we, Riley Nelson had a wide open pass to Cody Hoffman, I think over the middle, would have warmed up because I think he could have won that game. Gary, by the way, in Saudi Daisy, Tennessee is on the stream. That's
awesome.
a new one
That's
for
a
us.
new one. I don't think we've been in Tennessee.
Okay, so Rudy.
Okay, so Rudy's that. How about your favorite singer or band?
Wow. Let's see. When I was a kid, it was Bread. A lot of people probably don't
That's
even
classic.
know who they
I
are.
love that. I've got it on my phone.
If you really feel that.
So what is
Right?
it today?
Today, probably Train. I don't know.
Train.
Okay.
Hey, you know what?
That's
Nobody
hip
has
and
said
happening.
Train. I love Train. I saw them live, and they were so talented.
That's
Their
hip.
band is talented, and they're good. I love Train.
Your wife would be proud of you to
Me
drop
Virginia.
Train on the
Me
show.
Virginia is a good Train
Yeah.
song. Okay, your favorite breakfast cereal?
Wow. Let's see. I love Captain Crunch. I don't eat it very often, but
That's
I love
Dave's.
it.
That's
I had
Dave's.
it this morning.
Captain Crunch.
And I'm not ashamed to admit that.
And
Captain
you-
Crunch.
I think everybody knows by now what I had before I came to the show because I always eat a bowl of Cinnamon Life before I come to the show. That's my pregame meal, Cinnamon Life. So, your favorite ice cream flavor? And it could be from a place. Like where from and what flavor?
Well, I love I love Rocky Road.
Okay.
I love mint chocolate chip. I've never met an ice cream flavor I didn't like.
They're all friendly.
If you could just pick anywhere to go get ice cream, anywhere in the country, where would you go to get ice cream?
Let's see. I love gelato actually, which is I guess a version of ice cream, kind of.
That's
Yeah,
kind. That's
yeah.
that's an
In-
Italian
In
excuse.
Florence, Italy, some of
Yeah,
their
yeah.
gelato is amazing.
Yeah.
All right.
Their best gelato place in the world is called Giolitti's in Rome, right by the Trevi Fountain around the corner.
Yeah.
And every time we go, it's like just head for Giolitti every night.
It's amazing stuff.
And then my kids tease me because we'll go in and we'll get gelato for everybody, and then I'll be gone. They'll go, "Where's Dad?" Then they'll come back out and they all go, round two, because I always get 2 gelatos.
Connor just said, I just finished off a box of Cinnamon Life. What a classic.
Yes,
All right.
thank you, Conrad. Way to go.
JR's on the stream from Flower Mound, Texas. Hey,
Hey,
JR.
beautiful. I was just in Flower Mound last weekend before I flew back for the game.
Did you run into JR?
I didn't see JR there. I wish I'd known that JR was going to be there. I would have taken him out to dinner, but he didn't call. So,
All right. Okay, number 5.
last one. Your favorite BYU memory of all time?
Wow.
That's a tough one because you've seen a bunch.
I've seen
And
a
you've
lot.
been part of a bunch.
I have been. Probably the Miracle Bowl. I was at my father-in-law's house. My wife and I had been married about a year, and she had fallen asleep on my lap as the game, because it was going into the night. And when BYU scored that touchdown, I literally threw her on the floor and jumped up in the air. She went flying off, and I jumped up. And it was just kind of a release of all that frustration over the years of, having BYU lose bowl games.
Yeah. It took a miracle to break through.
The year before, I felt really bad because a lot of my teammates, Mark Wilson, Brent Johnson was actually my one game I traveled with the JV team. Brent Johnson was my roommate.
Oh.
And he was actually a very
The
good
kicker,
kicker.
the kicker,
He was, there was talk he was going to go into the NFL. And the most awesome guy, amazing guy, and we go down there and miss a 20-something yard field goal. Otherwise, BYU probably finishes in the top 5 that
And
year.
12-0.
Yeah,
12-0.
Yeah.
I was at that game, and I couldn't tell from our angle if he made it or not. And then the Indiana fans in front of us were screaming. I was like, "You got to be kidding me! We missed that," and we did.
And I hate listening to Lee Corso talk about beating us in that. There
It's
were some,
only bowl
He
win. I
always
think.
talks
there were
He
some
still
fluke
talks
plays,
about it.
Fluke plays in that.
I wish people it would have been fun to have a camera watch your reaction on that one. I wish the other day at the end of the Utah game when BYU made the field goal that there was a camera on us in the green room before we went on the post-game show.
yeah, that was
because
something.
Austin Colley and Dave Nixon work in environments where they have a ton of Utes that they work with. And they were as up and down as that game as you could be. When they made that field goal, there was like chest bumping and high-fiving, and it was
It
crazy.
was one of the great moments in life.
It was so
It just
fun.
was.
It was so fun to be in
Never forget
there
it.
with those guys, and just the relief that they could go back to work today.
Out of the Blue, an insider's look at the rise of BYU athletics. It's a great read. I recommend it. Read it. And where can folks buy it?
You can get it on Amazon, Kindle. I mentioned my website, outofthebyublue.com.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy it there, I will sign it.
Nice.
And send it to you, sign it for you, and personalize it. Just give me your name. Yeah, I like that.
I don't know if he'll do this, but I got a couple of paragraphs in that one, so I'm excited about that.
Wait, I didn't see.
Thank you.
So,
Congratulations on the book, and we look forward to having you back on the show again. Did you get you signed?
Yes,
There it is.
Right
there it is, right there. So
That's awesome.
get it on the website and get an autograph. If not, get it wherever you can, and it's fun to have. And when you're 9-0, you just want to consume stuff. And here's a new book, Out of the Blue.
it's in
from Val
bookstores
Hale.
too, several bookstores, so you can probably find it.
Okay. Hey, thanks for coming.
Thank you. It's
Appreciate
great
you having
to
on the
So
show.
good to have you
With some
on. So good to catch
longtime
up.
friends.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it again. We won't wait for your next book to do it. Let's just do it again.
Deal.
We love your insight, especially on all this
In
AD
fact,
stuff.
the next time someone AD says something crazy, we're going to have you right
gonna
back
be,
on.
me a call.
Do you know how we talked about Macaulay's our rules go-to? You're our AD going out of their mind go-to.
There you go.
So
Thanks, Val.
Thank you.
Val Hale on the Wise Guys, great friend, and has been involved with BYU for so long through so many things. And that book is Out of the Blue. Cougars in the NFL. Let's run down that before we bring on our next guest. Michael Davis and the Commanders Thursday night, prime time against the Eagles.
that's right. Hey, Sunday, we'll go to Sunday. The Ravens with Kyle Van Noy, who's having another great season.
How about Kyle was tweeting like crazy through that Utah
man,
game?
he was.
When he plays on Thursday, that's a live social media account over the
he's
weekend.
just going crazy when he's watching these games, and I love it. He had lots of input on that one. We got the Rams and Puka Nacua at the Patriots with Sione Takitaki.
I hope Puka can shake the injury bug.
Yeah.
And Browns are the Saints. Taysom Hill, Jamal Williams. Saints fired their coach. They got to win the other day, but it's good to see. Jamal's been banged up. He didn't play on Sunday.
That's
Taysom's
right.
feeling better.
We got the Packers and Zane Anderson, who, by the way, had a bye last week, so he came to the BYU-Utah game and was on our pregame show.
That was awesome.
They're at the Bears this Sunday.
Tyler Algier and the Falcons are at the Broncos, so Tyler will get a chance to reunite with Zach Wilson during warm-ups.
The Seahawks are at the Niners, and Fred Warner, the best defender in all of football right now.
The Chiefs, Kingsley Suamataia, and Andy Reid are at the Bills. By the way, Andy Reid is 9-0 in Kansas City, and his Cougars are 9-0 in Provo.
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever happened in the same year
Between
ever.
Kalani and Andy, they're 18-0 right now.
That's awesome.
There you go.
Ryan Rico, who's kicking great for the Bengals, is at the Chargers. So that's what's coming up this week in the NFL. In just a bit, we'll look at the Big 12 standings and what this week means. We'll also preview Kansas coming up here in just a couple of moments. Right now, our next guest is trying to fill a ship full of Cougar fans for the first voyage cruising with the Cougs. It's our pleasure to welcome Troy Dunn to the Wise Guys, and Miranda's going to hit that magic button, and just like that,
Troy and
there
I
you
here,
are.
here we are.
Welcome. What do you think of our lair here?
I got to be honest with you. 28 years in television, I've been in a lot of studios, and when you watch you on YouTube, you just think it's a couple of cool guys hanging out in a room, and then you get here and go, holy cow, this is Broadway production. I mean, what people can't see is, this is a legit professional, amazing. You got a whole staff of producer people back here.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
And we wanted to do it in a place that was more relaxed. And so our executive producer and our partner, Jack Hadley's like, let's put this studio together and let's make it retro and let's get the league up here and let's do this right. And he had a vision that he talked to Dave and I about, and Dave and I were like, yeah, we like this vision. Let's do this. And we love the format where we can bring people in and it's casual and we can talk like Andy Reid. We were just talking about Andy. He was on for 45 minutes with us, just talking about life, and it's a different format than our normal TV format that Dave and I have been involved in for 30 plus years each, where we get little 4 and 5 and 6 minute sound bites with people. Yeah. We can get into stories. It's great. We love it. It's so fun for us to do. And we hope the people that are out there that download it every week and listen to it every week and come on the live stream with us. We hope they like this.
It's a heck of a gift to Cougar fans. And I'll say that because I'm always been a Cougar fan, but I've only lived in Utah a few years.
Right.
And so having spent 28 years on the East Coast, when the only taste of BYU football we get is television, and then every couple of years, maybe a tailgate party somewhere in Florida.
Yeah.
That's it. So when you're sitting here naming off how the entire world is tuned into your live stream, it does not even slightly surprise me.
Yeah.
Because
so fun.
we're so hungry out there as BYU fans for some content. And this, you're feeding like rich content, and you're not, what would I say? I don't get myself in trouble. You play it really down the middle, like very legit, right? You're not just...
We're not selling something.
No.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I love to hear your enthusiasm, your subtle disappointment from time to time. Like,
sure.
This is what we want.
Well, we're loving it. And I don't know what we're tracking this month, but when we look at total impressions across all of our platforms, we're in that 1.8 million a month.
Does not surprise me a bit.
Which is really fun. And we're so glad that people are embracing it. We really are.
Yeah.
Well, so you're watching this game Saturday night. Take us through your emotions. You were there.
I was
Where
there.
were you sitting?
Wow.
In the only section safe, which is the BYU section.
So you're in the
So
corner?
you're by my
I'm
wife.
in the corner. I'm right above the cheerleaders.
Okay.
And I want to be really transparent and honest because I'm as big of a Cougar fan as it gets.
Yeah.
I said to my wife, if he doesn't get out of the end zone on this one and get a first down, let's go.
Okay.
That's
fair.
Because there's a couple of minutes left.
Thousands of others were thinking that,
I
too.
wasn't trying to send a message. I just wanted to beat the traffic. That was it.
Yeah.
And it was a record crowd. So you
was
got
a
the
huge
masses
crowd,
up there.
and to be real honest, because we were on the left end of that section, so we're really just across the aisle from a lot of red shirts, and they were really getting aggressive as it became evident to most. So it looks like Utah's going to win. They were getting loud.
Sure.
I just didn't want my wife and I to be stuck in the middle of that. So we were booking down the steps as soon as he got sacked in the end zone. I'm like, we'll listen to the rest of it on the radio. And then they said, wait, there's a flag.
Hold on, everybody.
And we hit the brakes at the second to last row, pulled back into the bleachers, sat back down. And for the next, 60 seconds, I screamed like a little girl continuously. And it was really amazing to watch and to experience. And I get a little philosophical with people, and so I think sometimes I sound like some sort of a weird like BYU hippie, and I don't mean to be that. But here's my take on what happened.
Okay.
So football, I'm a third generation football player. We were born and bred for this sport. I was recruited to play BYU in 1984. I was on a high school team in Oklahoma that won the state championship. I took my trips to OU, OSU, TCU, and BYU. Those were my visits. Got to sit across the desk from Lavelle Edwards, and
awesome.
That is my greatest BYU experience. Was that?
Oh, all right.
That 15 minutes. But one thing that everybody has when they walk on a football field is an offense, a defense, and a kicking team, right? A special teams.
Yeah.
There's a fourth pillar that not everybody has, and BYU has it. And it's that one that everybody kind of plays it down, but I think that the world's having to start accepting, which is the fourth pillar is culture. And what happened at the BYU-Utah game was a clash of cultures. And the offenses and the defense and the special teams battled back and forth, and we all saw the game. We know how that was going down, and nobody could tell for sure from minute to minute what was going to work and what wasn't.
Yeah.
But when the last second ticked off, culture won. And part of that evidence is unfortunately what happened after the fact, right? Because culture is always built from the top down. There's no such thing as culture that flows up. It doesn't exist.
And culture is not religion.
Not even a little bit.
This isn't a religion. They call it a holy war and all that stuff. We don't call it that. But it's not. You're not talking about religion of God shining down on one side or the other. Culture is different.
It is different. And it is a feel, and it's an energy, and it's why we're yanking big fish out of the portal, even though we're not throwing the biggest checks at people.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, there is a certain amount of money that's enough for some. And they're like, okay, now I also have to make sure I enjoy myself. And when these kids are making these visits, they're seeing the same thing you see everywhere. AstroTurf field, big stadium, lots of cool stuff. And then they spend enough time to feel the culture. And that's why we win great athletes. That's what happened Saturday. And that's what broke down for Utah. And as we saw, and I don't want to point fingers and be mean because enough has probably been said about it in the world, but from the top down, from the comments that were made by the AD to the comments that were made by the head coach, to the bottle that flew out of that crowd, knocked out our cheerleading coach, to the things that were being shouted at us in the BYU section from the red side of the field, culture fell apart while ours held together. And there's little pieces of that culture that I don't even think people know about, right? Like little tiny, like, so
That's great.
I'm a big fan of Will Ferrin. He's my son's best friend.
Yeah.
We know him like one of our sons. We love him to death.
We don't call him Will anymore. We call him Big
I know
Game
you
Bill.
call him Big Game Bill, and that's awesome.
Big Game Bill.
I don't know who was it. Was it
Retzlaff
Jake
came up
Retzlaff
with
called
that.
him Big Game Bill. He goes, "Oh, you're talking about Big Game Bill?" And we're like, "Is
I
that his
guess
new
we are.
nickname?" And Jake goes, "Yeah." We go, "Then that's what we'll call him now,
Well,
Big Game Bill."
I think that's shorter than where there's a will, there's a way. But I also love that.
Yeah, it's fun.
But when people watch it on TV, as soon as you make a field goal, they go to commercial. And what people don't see is Will Ferrin, who's the kicker, who now has to get his butt out to the middle of the field for kickoff, right? He goes from mindset of make this field goal to mindset, I got to bury that thing in the end zone now. But instead, he runs to the sideline and he stands there. If you're ever at a game, you'll see this every single time. And he greets every single member of the kicking team who's coming off and expresses his gratitude to every one of them. Now, I've been to a lot of games. That's not what kickers do. Kickers run off and they swap tee. They grab the tee and they run to the middle and they get ready to kick off. But that's not because Will's just amazing. That's the culture.
Yeah.
That's hard to beat. You cannot scout culture.
And you know what? The culture of this team now is they believe in each other. When the offense was struggling at the beginning of the year, the defense was carrying them, but nobody on the defense got on the offense.
Yeah.
They said, it's okay, they'll come along. They're going to win some games for us.
Right.
When the offense had a lights-out game and the defense struggled, the offense didn't get on the defense. They said, that's okay, defense. You had us early. We got you now.
Yeah.
And when the special teams needed to win games, they've won games. There's not been any of this. And you know what happens? In a game that's a struggle, this team now believes that no matter what happens, if they're in it at the end, they're going to win. Mm-hmm. That's what they believe.
Because it happens here. We all know that. Everything's won here first. And I don't think what people realize, and Kansas should know this before they get here, that game has already been won, right? BYU's already beaten Kansas because they've already played the game here, and that's our culture. Mm-hmm. And so those kids walk on the field, and all they're doing now is executing what's already happened for them. Whereas I think other teams are showing up and going, I hope we can win this. I hope we don't lose another one. Utah's like, this is all we got. Like they came in with this almost desperate energy.
Yeah.
And you lose. Culture wins.
So your son's best friend trots out on the field. The clock's counting down.
I love Will, by the way.
And
our kids all went to Davis High.
He's going to attempt a 44-yard field goal to win the game.
Yeah.
Now, and you know that he's good enough to make that kick. You also know that if he misses that kick, this play is going to live in infamy one way or the other way. And if he misses, the place is going bananas, and you don't wish that on any kid. And if he makes it, he's a hero. So before that snap, what are you thinking?
So just before it snapped, I was looking over my right shoulder because his mom and dad were just sitting just a section over. But honestly, I was calm. And I was calm because I have such confidence in him. And I think we, as the fans, have become part of this culture.
Yeah, you just
And
believe.
we're starting to just feel it as if we were in the locker room stretching out and warming up. And, keep in mind the average college field goal is 36 yards and the average NFL field goal is 40. Mm-hmm. That was 44 yards. It's not an automatic gimmick. No. It's not the little one. That's a big kick.
And then throw some pressure in.
There can't be more pressure. The entire game, right, in the greatest game of the year and one of the largest rivals in the United States of America has come down to this kid and his foot.
Yeah.
And no time left on the clock for a redo. This is it.
It's totally nuts.
That's it. But that's the culture that he's thriving in because it's such a safe.
So it sails through the uprights.
Yeah.
Then what do you feel?
Mostly just the sound of my own ears ringing. I was screaming. I'm not exaggerating. I was screaming and jumping up and down like I myself had kicked the ball. It was unbelievable. And I just feel like the script keeps, every time we turn the page, something you would never write on a script because it wouldn't be realistic keeps happening. That's the year we're having. We're having the year that could not happen. It is fiction come to life.
It's, you know what? It's out of the blue.
It's out of the blue.
I love that.
Yeah, I like that. I was going to ask you if you saw Will's interviews after the game, because he came on the show with us, on the post-game show with us, and I just marveled at his presence, his calmness, the way he approaches the game. Kelly Papinga was quoted as saying he went over to Will as they were on that last drive and said, what hash do you want it on? Mm-hmm. And Will said to Kelly Papinga, doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. I don't care. It's good because I'll make it. Mm-hmm. He just told Kelly, I'll make it. Whatever hash it is, I'll make it.
Right.
And Kelly's like, okay, we won't worry about that then. If he's not worried about it, I'm not even going to worry about it. And then he told us at the post game, it doesn't really matter where it is because I do my steps. Once I do my steps, they all go straight. So I just do my steps and it's just going to go straight and it's going to go in.
Yeah.
That's how he approaches it. Self-fulfilling prophecy. I'll do my steps. I'll get them right. The ball will go straight. It will always go through. And he approaches the misses. I know he does this because he's only had 2 the whole year. What is he, 17 of 19 now?
Something like that.
I think it's like crazy number.
Yeah.
And when he misses, he just goes, oh, that's an aberration. That will never happen again. I must have got my steps wrong.
Yeah.
And so he also knows how to deal with when he's missed.
He's managing his own mental health about the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
His mental health for a kicker is, and I've been around a bunch of them, the best I have ever seen.
Yeah.
His mental approach to the game is the best I have ever seen.
Well, you think about his moment, like if you could just put yourself in his place, standing down there on that field, right? Not at BYU, not where you have 66,000 people who love you and are literally praying for you in that moment.
Yeah.
But 56,000 people who are literally praying that you miss it, that you choke. They're they're trying everything they can. They're screaming obscenities at you. And there's 11 of them on the other side of the field who are just hoping they can come in and cause you some form of harm.
Yeah.
And he just stays in that place. I almost feel like if we could get inside Will's mind, there is nobody in the stadium. He's just standing on a field by himself like he's done 10,000 times, and he's just kicking.
He's got his steps right, and he knows it's going to go straight.
Yeah.
Well, it went straight
and you know what?
won the game. It's awesome.
I asked Gavin, my son's the defensive back, coach the safeties, and I said, hey, when Will was going out there, Gavin was like, oh, not one of us down there on the field and staff had any doubt that if we could get the ball to the 35-yard line, that it would be 100% he would make that.
I'm telling you, that ball could be sitting on the 45.
Yeah. And they have confidence that too, but Gavin's like, we knew, like from where he was kicking at 45 yards.
I was glad he was closer.
He said every one of the coaching staff was like, oh, we just won this game because we just put Will under 50 yards. Like he will never miss from under 50 yards. That was the mentality.
Great stuff.
I would, sorry, I just have to throw one more piece of love out real quick. And that is that as excited as I am that Will's getting all that attention, he got down to that place because a lot of unsung heroes on that offensive line fought like their lives depended on it after having had a really hard game and a lot of battles. And, there was a lot of pressure.
And 2 starters missing, which nobody's talked about.
Yeah. And they
you had Braden Keim, who's manned that right tackle the whole year out. And you have Connor Pay, who's coming back for this next game, out, and Bruce Mitchell in there. You had two guys that started the season as backups on that offensive line in the 2-minute drill at the end of the game, protecting the quarterback and letting him move their way down the field and get there.
That's the culture. They know where they have to get Will to, and they're like, we'll do it. We'll get it done.
Troy Dunn with Cruising with the Cougs on the Wise Guys tonight, presented by Brady Plus and distributed by the Deseret News. All right, it's chilly outside, so let's talk about something nice, fun, and warm.
Let's
give
go
us
on a
the
cruise
details.
in
This
our minds.
Cruising with the Cougs concept. Where did this come up? It's never happened before, so where did you get it?
So I thought I invented it, but I would learn later that the Ohio State Buckeyes have done it 14 years in a row.
Okay.
Oh, man.
And I say, I've got a business partner named Jason Burgess, and both of us are diehard BYU fans. Jason's had the blessing of living in Utah his life and being up close and personal. I've always had to live out on the East Coast. So it's just kind of back to that selfish desire to get closer and be more involved. And even if you live here, your access is limited, right? I mean, you can go line up in Cougar Canyon before the game and watch the team run by and get a high five. That's it. Unless you're a big, sponsored donor, you can go to some special private dinners and things. Outside of that, that's it. And so we thought, what could we do that would create the absolute highest level of fan integration that they've never experienced? And again, for me, how could I play pickleball with Kalani Sitaki? So we created the cruise idea. It was about as unrealistic as imagining BYU would be 9-0.
Okay.
It was that over the top idea. Tom Homo, bless his heart, a man of great vision. Chad Lewis, like just their entire, talk about culture. They were like, well, what's it going to take? I'm like, well, a lot of money, a whole cruise ship, and fans who want to hang out.
Yeah.
He said, well, that last one's easy. They always want to hang out.
A ship? Now you got to get a ship.
Yeah, and so not to sound commercially, but honestly, our dear friend, the CEO of Mountain America, wrote a ridiculous check, who loves the Cougars dearly, made the impossible possible, called Royal Caribbean and said, we want to bring a group. And they're like, how big? I'm like, I want the whole ship.
Wow.
The whole ship.
Like,
and this is not one of their little ships.
No. This is a 4,000 passenger, massive ship. It's, just to be clear, it's 75. It's 3/4 full.
Wow, we were going to ask about the response.
It's almost gone. So, like, if people are just now hearing it for the first time, the shot at getting on is really small.
So you got to do it now.
You really, I know it sounds very salesy, but I'm just being honest. If you're my best, I have friends calling me here like, dude, how do I get a suite? I'm like, suites are gone. Yeah. Okay, how can I get one of those interiors are gone? 8 cabin categories are sold out.
Wow.
Nice. Then, as if, we were excited when Kalani, announced that he would come on and bring his family. And then it was one star after another after another. I mean, if you name the 10 legends of BYU football,
they're all on the ship.
They're all coming. I have a couple on my wish list. One of them has to go ahead and stay undefeated as the head coach of the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And then
we're friends with Andy. We can have a little.
Make sure that's not the NFL draft week, and you might have a shot.
I'll have Brenda call Tammy and see what she can do.
It is the NFL draft week.
Oh, it is.
However, a little tiny bird tells me, if they make it to the big game again, there is a possibility. You can ask him yourself.
He might have some free time.
There might be a retirement in place.
Okay.
Wow, so that'd be great. But who else do you need? We can help.
No, we've almost got everything.
Okay.
We have now people, and this is not football now, right? It's, Jimmer's going to be there. Basketball. You talked about Jennifer Rockwood. Like, every sport's represented on this thing. So if you're a Cougar fan, but more of a basketball, more of a volleyball.
There's a little of everything.
Yeah, the Cougarettes are coming, Cosmo's coming.
Somebody asked me the other day, is it a fundraiser for the athletic department or is it a vacation?
Oh,
what is it?
It's a fundraising vacation.
Fundraising vacation. So how does that work?
So a portion of the funds that we don't have to get to Royal Caribbean will go directly to BYU Athletics.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
And of course, there'll be merch. We're having an entire line of limited edition merch made just for the cruise.
Will there be Cougar tails on the ship?
I wish I could answer that question. Don't ruin all the surprises.
What kinds of activities will they be involved in on the ship?
So we've replaced 100% of the entertainment. Now, when you charter a cruise ship, you get a package deal. Like, you just get that magician, that comedian, and those dancers and singers. We said, well, fine, but we don't want them on the stages. So they all get the week off. They'll be on the ship floating and probably helping us out with things.
Wow.
We are bringing in all either LDS or BYU celebrities to do all the shows, the comedian,
nice.
David Osmond and Savannah Stevenson from Broadway, from Wicked. We're bringing all the wins. And of course, the BYU athletes themselves will be doing some panel discussions, and we're going to, I feel like I'm getting in trouble for giving away surprises. There's going to be some big game shows and big prizes, and you're going to be able to compete against the athletes. There's a lot of meet and greets.
So you're just on the ship, and then here comes Ty Detmer, and then here's Jim McMahon, or here's Steve Young, or here's just a who's who.
It's a who's who, and there are some who's that we haven't announced yet because they've asked us not to.
Right.
So, but when you get on the website at BYUcruise.com, you'll see every person that we are permission to say. It is an 8-day tailgate party.
An 8-day tailgate.
Yeah, this isn't a 3-day, like one of those little booze cruises. And, people will say to me, where's it going? I say, who cares? I mean, I'll tell you where it's going. It's going down the Mexican Riviera.
Right.
But you won't want to get off the ship. We have programming, BYU Cougar programming, 24 hours a day the entire time. We probably will do future BYU cruises just because it's sold so fast.
Yeah.
But my honest, humble, off-the-record opinion, I guess we can't be off the record, but
I
don't know if we'll ever get this group of people together again. Like, it has been mind-blowing. And some of them are just reaching out to us like, oh, how come I'm not coming? I'm like, you are. Come on. So, yeah, it is. If you're a true blue Cougar fan, especially these people on your live feed that are not living here locally and have never, you got to be here. And if you're somebody who says, my family's owned season tickets since the 60s, this is your event.
So
we've got the link to your site where folks can go get more information.
Lynn's asking, is Ty going to join the cruise? Detmer?
Can't say.
We'll get back to you on that one. In fact, next time Ty's on the show, he was just on a couple weeks ago. We'll ask him.
Get him on there now. Let's talk.
If he's going to do that.
Linda, we haven't announced it yet, but I'm going to be there doing some stuff. So
it'll be interesting.
You guys will be doing the show out there, aren't you?
I think Sports Nation guys are going to do that.
Yeah.
Jerem and Spencer
are doing a show on there. I'm going to help host a bunch of stuff there.
All right. So. Awesome.
So when are the dates?
April 11th. So the dates were selected so that they come in after the Final Four and General Conference and before graduation and Easter. So that's the date. Yeah.
So
and a great time to be down where it's warm.
By Kalani himself.
There you go.
And for folks to sign up, they go to the website.
BYUcruise.com, and there's a way you can call in and do it. You can look there and see what's left that's available for cabins.
Conrad Monson saying, is this the only year this is going to be, or is this going to be a consistent thing?
This is the only one we're committing to tonight.
Okay.
Oh, we added sports camps. As if we already had enough on. So now the coaches and players who are on board will be the ones actually teaching sports.
Some
camps.
of the sports stuff there.
For the football, for basketball, Jimmer's doing the 3-point class. Like,
Nice.
Yeah, they're all, and those are, I think.
You got to shoot in the ocean breeze, the 3-point class.
We have access to the whole ship, so we've got a basketball court and open space.
This ship has water slides and courts and all kinds of stuff.
Oh,
on it.
everything. We've really got
this
basically
is a crazy
it's
ship.
a city. We've rented an entire city. We're going to take it out to sea.
So Linda Murray says we're going. So there you go.
So-
Excited to meet some of the athletes, and I'll be glad to see you there, Linda.
So the ship is 3/4 sold.
Yes.
What do you have to top it off to make this a successful venture for everybody involved, or are you now in the where everything else beyond here is a bonus and money for the?
I mean, I don't know where the break-even line is, but
Yeah.
we've never really thought about it because we are at the rate we're going, we'll have a waiting list.
Yeah.
So I mean, we already have a waiting list on several things, right? There was a VIP package; those have been gone for 5 months.
Nice.
Most of the kids' sports camps are sold out, but there's a few spots left.
Might just take a blizzard to top off that ship.
Yeah, I
You
don't know.
As soon as we get some snow around here.
Every time we have another win, the phones light up on Monday
Well,
morning.
it's supposed to get really cold and snowy tomorrow, so all of Utah may decide they want to
So
go
they
on a
say,
cruise
"Get me
by
on that
tomorrow."
ship."
Yeah, to listen to the show.
spend
Like, you know
April.
what? Let's go to the Mexican Riviera for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. With all of BYU Nation.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You ready for 5 questions?
Oh, I get to do 5.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can do 5 questions.
Five
Can I say,
questions
This
is-
is an
And
honor.
it's not exactly the same, but it's pretty much the same. So we're
5
gonna
questions
start.
presented by Strategy Square, delivering connection, clarity, and confidence in business and marketing strategies. So everyone that's been on this show, whether it's Steve Young down to Tide or Marie
Amy,
Osmond,
Marie,
they've done 5 questions.
They all do this.
So it's different 5 questions?
No,
Okay.
they're the standards, but sometimes we replace the 5th one with one that's specific to you. So our 5th
right.
one's specific to you. So,
Oh, man, that makes me nervous.
so
By the way, Greg wants to know, so where's the cruise headed? It's headed to Mexico, right?
Yeah.
Into Mexico, so we're going to go to Ensenada only because the factory that makes all the LDS temple glasses there, so we've been given private access to go in there.
very cool.
I want to emphasize, not that it matters, it's not a religious cruise, it's a sports cruise.
Right.
So
Right.
you
Big
don't
difference.
have to be, you absolutely can come and be yourself and enjoy yourself. The only real rule is you cannot wear anything red.
That's a
Yeah,
good
do you
rule to
know?
have.
So I
Excellent
have
rule to
to
have.
tell you, last week I did the college football playoff reveal show at BYU TV, and then Dave and I called the game. It was election day, so I wore a red, white, and blue tie for election day. America, people.
Yeah.
I took so much flack from fans that I had red in my tie.
If Blaine shows up in a red Bermuda shorts, just throw him off the ship.
I would never do that. But don't you think it was okay for me to wear a red, white, and blue tie on election day?
No, not on Utah week.
Okay, well, then
He
I
gave me
wore-
no
Utah
support
week.
on this deal.
No, I
Fans were
said,
killing
come on,
me.
you know better than that.
And Dave was like, no, they're right. They're absolutely right. I'm like, Dave, America.
So right now,
Yeah,
my
America's
wife is
got more.
cringing.
It's got blue in there too.
My wife is upset, and she's on team whoever said that, because I won't get into politics, but I wore a particular red hat to the BYU game Saturday, and she was like, "You must have another color version of that hat. You don't have to wear red."
It's like, well, Jimmer and I both wore royal blue jackets, Like Dave wore dark. The only thing was it was a red, white, and blue tie for election day, and I
felt you crossed the line.
and I took a lot of flack, and then Dave piled on.
You know, when you're watching this on YouTube, you don't sense the tension that is really in this room.
Yeah, I mean, he's my brother. I love him.
looking
We
out
worked
for him.
together
I'm
for
just looking
30
out
plus
for
years.
him.
But if I do something wrong, he is like
I'm
a brother.
saying,
He's
look,
like, dude, you can't do that.
You're going to catch all kinds of grief, and then I'm going to hear
And
about
I'm
it.
gonna hear about it, and I'm gonna have to defend you, and
So
I'm
it's
not
like,
defending you on this one.
just find another tie.
Yeah. So,
All right, let's do it.
okay, so here's your 5 questions. We'll start with the same first 4, and that is your favorite sports movie.
Oh, Remember the Titans.
That's our most popular.
Yeah,
by the way.
I mean, I'm sorry. I
How
wish I
do you
had a
not
better
like that
answer.
one?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Your favorite singer or band?
Queen.
Ooh, we haven't had a lot of Queen, and I don't know why.
I don't need
Because I think they're
You're
phenomenal.
not talking to enough kids from the 80s.
There you go.
We need more kids from the 80s.
Yeah, here we rule.
Classic rock.
AC/DC for
Classic
that guy.
rock from the 80s is
So,
awesome.
AC/DC is my go-to workout music.
Yeah, it has to
Queen
be.
is just when I want the nostalgia trip. 'cause
I
that's-
love Queen. I like your
good
favorite.
stuff.
Your favorite breakfast cereal.
So I used to invent my own as a kid. I would mix Lucky Charms and Fruit Loops, and I called it Lucky Loops.
Okay.
But
Okay.
they have recently invented a Fruit Loops with marshmallows, so I no longer have to mix.
Just the
so Fruit Loops.
What?
is
There's
it.
a Fruit Loops with marshmallows.
Yeah, there really is.
And I feel like I was ripped off because
Okay.
I felt like I invented that. But
I actually might have to try that.
I'll tell you what, a fresh box of Fruit Loops, that first bowl
Come on.
there's nothing better.
And the milk that's left afterwards,
Yeah,
are
it's
you
like
kidding me?
it's like a fruit
I
beverage.
would drink it by the glass.
And we promote like sugar cereals on this show.
We should be, Kellogg should be one of our sponsors.
Yeah. And diabetes medicine.
Yeah.
That too. That's in 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll get there.
My mom used to say, "You can't eat like that. You're going to get sugar diabetes." I'm like, "Mom, I don't think that happens from eating like Fruit Loops. I don't think that happens."
I don't want to know if it does.
Okay, your favorite BYU memory?
And it sounds like it was 15 minutes with Lavelle.
It was.
So
it was
tell us
Lavelle
about that.
Edwards.
Yeah.
So
What was that like?
it was. I was nervous as heck, and he was my last trip. Right, I'd already been to OU, OSU, TCU, and then I flew out to Provo. And I don't know why, because the other ones, you just kind of know, like, they want me here. This is cool. They gave you stuff. You know, you got to figure out where the boundaries were. But when they stood there, I had to stand outside the door and wait for another athlete to come out. And they're like, okay, when he comes out, you get in there. Like, all right. And they reminded me to be polite, show respect.
Yeah.
You know. And I went in. My heart was pounding, and I could feel myself. I was like, don't sweat in front of him. And gave me a firm handshake, and it felt like I was talking to my dad or a church leader. I mean, just continuous eye contact, continuous. I mean, I thought most of the coaches, they ask you something, they write something down. They ask you something, they write something down.
Right.
He just leaned back and just stared into my soul. And at one point, the thing that he said to me was, "I'm going to guess, and I don't want to know. I'm going to guess you've been offered some stuff as you visited some of these other schools. I just want you to know we're not a stuff kind of place. And people who come here don't come here for stuff. They come here to be a part of what we are and who we are." And he just stared at me. I didn't know what to do. Like, do I just confess? Yes, I have been offered some stuff.
I have some stuff.
I have
Definitely.
seen some stuff.
I took the stuff.
Yeah.
So what'd you say?
I said, that's why I'm here. And then he called in a senior player from the team, which is, I guess, part of the protocol. And then he took me and drove me around town and showed me Provo. And took.
Do you remember who that? You remember who it was?
I don't. I
Do you remember meeting Blaine? Was Blaine nice? Did you meet any of the guys?
I would have been around that year, but
You would have been a kid, right?
yeah, I was a kid. It was 84.
84.
I would have just played in the national championship game, or were we recruiting you the year before
Recruiting
that?
you my junior year. So we
83.
finished the 83 season. We were
Yeah.
state champs. And then the 84 spring, I was recruiting.
Yeah, so
season.
I was redshirt. I redshirted in '83. Mark Bellini and I went fishing every Friday because we didn't have to go to practice in '83.
Oh, good life.
So yeah, it was a great life.
And
Caught
then
a
in
lot of trout.
August, I broke my foot. All scholarship offers went away. I ended up at Pittsburgh State. Played one season for Pittsburgh State.
Foge Fazio went to Pittsburgh State, who coached at the University of Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I mean, they were national players. All
So the foot sent you elsewhere.
Sent me to Pittsburgh State with great sadness. And it was honestly, I mean, you're 18 years old, but I was so emotionally distraught that I wasn't at BYU because I had already told my dad. Because my dad told me, he took me all my trips. He felt like I was less than respectful to TCU because it was a good Christian campus, and that's kind of what we wanted. I said, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. I just know where I'm going.
Oh,
He
that's
was
awesome.
like, yeah, but you got to keep your mind open. Anyway, no, it didn't.
My guide was Roy Spivey.
Oh yeah,
Guide? Is that what we called them?
Yeah,
Your
he was
guides?
my guide. He was my senior guide that took me around.
Yeah.
But
The
you
other
get to
schools
meet
don't send you
everybody.
a senior guide. The other schools send you some young, attractive female and make it really weird and awkward.
This is truth. This is absolutely truth.
And it's super weird.
So
And they
do
asked
you know
me,
who-
where do you want to go?
Do you
And
know who
I'm
my guide was at Pittsburgh, though? Danny Marino.
Oh nice.
Really?
He was my guide at
That's
Pitt.
a heck of a guide.
Yeah. And he was really good back then, but he got really, really good.
Yeah, he did. I've heard of him.
All right, number 5.
Okay, number 5. This is one that's specific to you. And where's your favorite place to cruise?
Wow. My favorite place to cruise. I don't want to be a cruise snob.
No, you please do.
Honestly, I would say we've been on a lot, right? I mean, Europe's beautiful. I would say Alaska.
Alaska. It is amazing, isn't it?
Because I'm not interested in laying out on the beach and doing all the sun stuff. I want to see and experience, and I want to be in a different place.
To go into Glacier Bay and watch the
calving
of the
glaciers.
Is that like one of the most amazing
It's all
things
of it.
ever?
It's watching whales along the ship. It's seeing bear on the shore eating a salmon. It's getting off the boat and going into this mostly undisturbed area of the United States. It's still like it was in the beginning.
I'm with you. And we think we have mountains here, but in Anchorage, they're 14,000 feet, but they start at sea level.
Oh my gosh, they're amazing.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Alaska, is one of the most beautiful places to cruise in the
I
world.
would like our next BYU cruise to be to
Let's
Alaska.
do it. Let's do it. I'll go with you
Alaska.
again.
Nice.
So.
All right, Troy Dunn, cruising with the Cougs. Let's fill up that ship. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys so much.
And thanks for sharing your experience from Saturday night. That put us right there. That was awesome.
Well, go Cougs.
Yeah, let's get one this Saturday and get to 10-0.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? We 10-0.
I know. It's crazy.
We get Kansas.
And Troy, are you going to be on the concourse at the basketball game on Wednesday?
Yes.
So if you can go introduce yourself to Troy because you and I met when it was the exhibition game, so I wasn't doing the game, so I just went and watched it. So I came and talked to you.
And you know what? I've never seen you in real life. I've only seen you on video. And you walked up to me and we talked about it, and I probably offended you.
No, you didn't at all.
But I was like, so what do you do? And yeah, you're right. That's embarrassing.
So Troy has a spot there on the concourse where he has information on the cruise and all of that. So Dave and I are broadcasting the game Wednesday, the Queens game. And then, so you'll be there Wednesday night on concourse. And then we're also doing the basketball game Saturday, which is Idaho. And then we're going to go over and do the pre and post game show for the football over at the studio. So
it's a big week.
Will you be there on Saturday also on the concourse?
One of us will be.
So
I mean, what's happening now, because the ship is almost completely full, is the concourse was to tell people about the cruise. Now it's talking to people who are on the cruise and telling them how. Yeah, they're like, "Will we get to meet Kalani?" Yes, you will get to meet Kalani.
It's like meeting Santa Claus.
So you can get information with the links we sent you, but you also, if you're at the basketball games Wednesday or Saturday, somebody will be on the concourse, walk around. You can ask questions. You can get information on how to sign up. Let's fill this ship up.
Let's go.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you. Good to meet you.
Thanks, Troy.
Good to have you here. Let's do the Cougar Board question of the week.
Yes.
If you're not familiar with Cougar Board, it's the largest online community of BYU fans.
This is a great question because
Thousands of posts every day. This one comes from Dilbert, one of their insider subscribers. There I am with the Jets shirt. We have to redo that one. What did Utah do on offense in the first half that was so effective against us? And what did our defense do in the second half to shut them down so well?
We sort of talked about this at the beginning, but let's rehash it. Nothing.
Next question.
Utah's offense didn't do a single thing in the first half that BYU didn't practice against and that they should not have been prepared. Emotionally, the guys I don't know if they were too up, they weren't thinking, or what was going on. But you had a few instances where guys were lined up wrong. You had instances where they were in the wrong gap. So BYU just didn't execute what was a very good game plan in that first half. And at halftime, the adjustments they made is they told the guys, calm down. You know what you're supposed to be. We have a plan. They're not doing anything that we didn't expect. Execute what you have been practicing for the last 2 weeks, and they will not score a point again in this game. They went out. They calmed down. They got into their spots. They lined up right. They played the way they were taught to play for the 2 weeks, and they shut them down, held them to under 80 yards of total offense and no points in the second half. So they didn't change a thing other than their mindset. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
How much your mindset can have an impact. And you know what? I get it. It's hard to operate effectively in that kind of environment, but BYU's been so good at it all year. Maybe they let the game, the big game, and all the emotional that get to them in the first half, but they certainly clamped down in the second half. And kudos for Kalani and Jay and those guys for recognizing they didn't need to make wholesale changes. They needed to calm the guys down.
We do know they know who will be the quarterback for Kansas on Saturday, and that drama won't exist.
Yeah, there's no drama there.
Here's the Big 12 standings as we sit. BYU's in first place at 6-0, followed by Colorado at 5-1. Then Kansas State, Arizona State, Iowa State, and West Virginia are all tied at 4-2. The top two teams go to the Big 12 championship in December. And then the winner of that one goes to the college football playoff. This week in the Big 12, and we'll use the AP rankings since the playoff rankings won't come out until tomorrow. Friday night, Houston's at Arizona. Kansas at number 7, BYU. You heard that right. Number 7.
Number 7.
AP.
My prediction is they'll be 7 in the college football.
Utah's at number 18, Colorado. That's at 10 a.m., by the way, and it'll be in the snow over in Boulder.
Can you believe that?
I'd rather have 8:15 and not snowy than 10 a.m. That game day would be at 8 a.m.
I'm with you 100%. I would much rather do that. That's going to be crazy. And you know what? Utah may be hurting and come back, but in a snowy game where Utah's defense is so physical that might slow down that crazy good offense of Colorado, don't be surprised if Utah comes out and plays well and beats Colorado over there.
Baylor's at West Virginia. If Baylor wins that game, keep your eye on that one. Cincinnati's at Iowa State. Keep your eye on that one. Arizona State's at Kansas State. So if Baylor, Cincinnati, and Arizona State and West Virginia all lose, then BYU can clinch Saturday night.
Well, I'm rooting for Kansas State anyhow.
Yeah.
Because I want them to stay ranked. So that because BYU pretty much beat them up. That helps BYU's strength of schedule, and Arizona State's not going to help them either way. And I would like Arizona State to come into that game against BYU wounded with a loss on the road at Kansas State, and BYU goes down to their place. And so, I'm rooting for Kansas State.
How about K-State live up to its potential? Let's see what they do.
Yeah, for sure.
National game of interest. Everything's interesting now when you're in the top 10.
Yeah.
Number 1, Oregon is at Wisconsin. Number 6, Tennessee's at number 11, Georgia. Okay, Tennessee's ahead of BYU. Georgia's behind. Georgia.
Yeah, of course we are.
And then number 12, Boise State's at San Jose State. And I'm pulling for Ken Niumatalolo and the Spartans because we don't need Boise State breathing down our neck.
No, and here's the thing. I typically do root for Boise State because I love the proximity, and they were such a good partner for BYU during the independence years. But I'm not rooting against Ken Niumatalolo. No. Ever.
So, now, and you know what?
Unless BYU plays San Jose State.
And if you want, Boise State is the next group out, right? It's the highest 4 conference champions.
Right.
And then you got the group of 5. And it's just like, Boise State can make the playoff. They just don't need to be that close to us. Yeah. Now let's talk about Kansas. They're 3-6. They're 2-4. They have wins over Houston and Iowa State, and they've got losses: West Virginia, TCU, Arizona State, and Kansas State.
They have close losses. They haven't won a game on the road this year.
And they played good the other night.
Yeah.
But they were playing at Arrowhead, where they played their home games.
Right. Jeff Grimes was their offensive coordinator, former BYU coach, former Baylor offensive coordinator.
Does that matter? Does that mean something?
No, it doesn't really make that much difference.
I wasn't sure if it would.
They have a very talented quarterback. You and I have, been very impressed with Jalen Daniels. 6 feet, 220 pounds. So he's a really sturdy, shorter kind of a guy. This year's completion percentage is down. So one of his lowest careers, 56% this year. 13 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He makes plays with his feet. He looks to throw it downfield, but he scrambles around and he causes breakdowns in the secondary, and he makes big plays, what we would say off schedule. So you got to keep him in the pocket. Devin Neal is one of the best running backs in this league. 5'11", 215-pound running back. 874 yards, a 5.9-yard average. He also has 16 receptions. He's really good out of the backfield. So they're very dynamic offensively because of those two guys.
I don't know why they've not won so many games.
I thought that they'd be competing for a championship this year, mainly because of those two guys, but they just haven't been as good up front on offense.
Yeah. And defense, the teams have scored at will. Iowa State just ran out of time.
Yep.
Yeah, they were scoring plenty of points.
Yeah, and so it'll be a fun game. Very different than the Utah game was a battle of two great defenses, and BYU's offense wasn't quite up to snuff. BYU's defense wasn't as good as they have been in the first half, but were really good. All in all, they held Utah to like 250 yards or 260 something yards of total offense. So they had a great game.
How about Dirk Palmer from North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, coming in on the Wise Guys?
Yeah, have we had South Carolina?
We have, but we haven't had a North Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, and
fantastic.
I love Myrtle Beach. Growing up in upstate New York, I would head down to Myrtle Beach.
Connor Pay's expected to be back.
Yes.
Braden Keim is not expected to be back this week.
But Braden Keim's expected to be back. We're hearing
at some point.
We're hearing that he'll be back this season.
It's not season ending.
Yeah.
It looked awful.
The game is at 8:15, as you mentioned, Dave, on ESPN National Television. So our game day show will start at 6 o'clock Mountain Time. That's on BYU TV and on ESPN Plus. So make sure you tune in for that. Dave and I will be coming over from the basketball game that we had just called.
Yeah, pace yourself. You're going to get a lot of us.
Get a little break, and then we'll be calling the pregame. So
post games on BYU TV late Saturday night for you on the East Coast. That's an early Sunday morning. The Cougars are going to come out with a Royal helmet, the Royal shirt, white pants with the Royal trim. That's going to pop on TV.
I like that look, especially at night. So
the weather forecast as we sit here on Monday: partly cloudy, a high of 40 for the day.
Yikes!
A low of 24. So morning snow, clearing. So it'll be clear and cool at night. So we're thinking we're going to be in the low 30s for kickoff.
Did you talk to Kevin about this? Because he's usually right on.
I haven't, but I will.
You need to call him.
But
we're talking about Kevin
it's from his app. That's from his weather app.
Okay, and we trust Kevin.
Yeah, and so anyway, it's going to be chilly. Vegas has BYU as a 3.5-point favorite, which is interesting because home field advantage is usually about 3 points. So it basically Vegas is saying, yeah, this is pretty close to being a toss-up. But BYU hasn't had Vegas's respect all year long, and that's okay. We don't really care about Vegas. But it's been interesting that they've been so wrong on so many things because they're usually pretty right.
Yeah, BYU has been, what are they? All but 2 games they've covered the spread and then some. Yeah. So, Conrad Monson says, how do you expect Connor Pay to play in his return?
I don't know.
And hey, good point by Michael Zimmerman. Utah did not score in the first, third, and fourth quarters. Only in the second quarter.
That's right.
Had that big second quarter. So good point.
Yeah. And we don't know how Connor's going to do.
Connor's a very cerebral player. So one of the big advantages is to have him back in there. And Bruce is also really smart, Mitchell. But Connor's been there and seen so many things. He's just a stabilizing force in there with all the calls. I expect Mitchell to start at guard. He's been so good, I expect him to start.
He got a little rattled in that rivalry game. Freshman center. A couple times the ball moved and there was a penalty where there was a discombobulation.
Crazy noise.
All over the place, but that was a true freshman center.
Well, and here's the other thing that was happening. Crazy noise, late substitutions, Utah doing the stall technique, and then all of a sudden, he's making the call, and Jake's back there clapping, like, give me the ball. There's 2 seconds left on the play clock. And both times where they had that snap violation were when the play clock was winding down.
Yeah, it was. So, everyone was just out of sorts.
Yeah, and BYU, they've got to be better at that. But they're not going to be in that kind of environment again the rest of the year.
Third meeting. It's the first time Kansas has ever been to Provo. The Jayhawks lead the series 2-0. They won last year, if you recall, in the Big 12 opener, 38-27. They had 2 defensive turnovers, 4 touchdowns.
Terminal turnovers, yeah.
That was a tough one. But we are now ready for Blaine's keys to beating Kansas on Saturday night.
Yes.
Number 1.
I am going to say keep Daniels in the pocket and mix up the pressures to keep him off balance. It's the Noah Fafita plan. It's the Arizona plan because he's a similar kind of quarterback, mobile, hurts you more outside the pocket than him. So you keep him in the pocket, you mix up pressure and drops, so you keep him off guard, but you don't let him get outside and make plays.
Okay.
Number 2, win the turnover battle. Last year they gave away 2 touchdowns directly on turnovers. That's the way you keep an underdog in a game, by doing that. So they just need to win the turnover battle, B+, just like they have been. And then sustain drives and score touchdowns in the red zone. So when you get these drives down the field, first of all, you don't have to score on every single drive. It would be nice. But move the football, get first downs. When you punt, play field position. But when you get it down to the red zone, score touchdowns and don't settle for field goals. Then you win this game going away.
Those are Blaine's keys to beating Kansas. Should be a full house, and the house will need to be rocking because, it is cold. You know what? I don't like being cold, but this is a chance to get to 10-0.
Let's pack 65,000 warm bodies in that stadium. It'll be much better.
Basketball news, the Cougars are 2-0. Yegor Demon today named the co-newcomer of the week in the Big 12.
Yeah, fantastic.
Beat Central Arkansas 88-50. Yegor had 18 and 11 rebounds. 18 and 11 assists, correction. Cannon Catchings had 17. At Riverside, it was a little different of a game.
Yeah, Yegor still was phenomenal. 20 points, 7 assists, 5 boards. Keba Keita had 14 points and 10 rebounds. He really made his presence known. BYU went 14 for 26 from the free throw line.
Yeah, that wasn't good.
That was the problem in that game. They should have won that thing going away, and it was closer than it should have been.
Riverside shot lights out, to their credit, and their coach was a lot of fun. It was great to hang out with them.
Yeah.
And they were 18 of 20 from the free throw line.
Yep.
That's how you stay in a game on the road.
It is.
And BYU beat them by 6. On Wednesday night, Blaine and I'll see at the Marriott Center, also on ESPN Plus, as Queens comes in. That's at 7. And then, as Blaine mentioned earlier, on Saturday, it's a matinee. Idaho at BYU, 1 o'clock Mountain Time. Both those on ESPN Plus.
You and I, Spencer, calling those.
That'll be a lot of fun.
Spencer will be on the sideline doing interviews for us.
Women's hoops is 2-0. Delaney Gibb. Remember when she was on this show and announced her intention to come here?
She announced it on this show.
Said no to Utah and yes to BYU on this show. She's the Big 12 Freshman of the Week. Talk about first impressions. Had 17 as BYU defeated Idaho 67-62, and then she came back with 22 to beat Wyoming on Saturday. The Cougars outscored the Cowgirls 31-6 in the third quarter. They're down at halftime. Then they go 31-6 in the third, and they take off and get their second win.
Yeah, this week, Thursday, Colorado State at BYU at 7 on ESPN Plus Mountain Time. Saturday, BYU at Idaho State 7 on a Mountain Time on ESPN Plus. Hey, by the way, Adam Streeter from San Antonio is in the house. I don't know that we've had San Antonio in the house, but he says my keys for quarterback containment are named Isaiah Glasker and Jack Kelly. I agree 100%, Adam, on that one. Thank you.
Those are 2 great keys. Volleyball is 14-8, 7-5. In the Big 12, 11-3 at home. Today's national ranking has them at number 24. You know why that matters? because the Cougars have now been ranked in the top 25 for the last 11 years. Yeah. Like every week, 11 years. And you know what? They're rebuilding a little bit. They had a lot more losses than normal, but they're still good enough to hang in, and they're still in the top 25.
They're really young. Number 23, Utah defeated number 21, BYU 3-0 in Salt Lake City.
11 years.
Yeah, it's
11
crazy.
straight years.
This week, Thursday, BYU's at UCF. The travel in this conference is big time. Yeah. That's 5 p.m. Mountain Time. And then Saturday, BYU's at Houston, 1 p.m. Mountain Time. Both of those games are on ESPN+.
Women's soccer, they're 9-6-5, 6-2-3. That feels like a telephone number.
Right. 965-623?
Yeah,
There's only 6 numbers.
Yeah, I know.
Didn't you have to have 7?
Yeah.
867-530. No, 9.
That's Jenny, right?
867-530-9.
So they're number 19 in the new poll today. Congratulations. The NCAA tournament field was announced this afternoon. BYU will host Santa Clara Friday night, 6 o'clock Mountain Time on ESPN+. 7th straight year the Cougars have reached the NCAA tournament. Of course, they've been in the College Cup in 2 of the last 3 years. That's the equivalent of the Final Four for basketball. Got beat by top seed TCU in the semifinals of the Big 12 tournament 2-1. They were up 1-0. TCU scored twice in like 40 seconds before halftime. Nobody scored in the second half. But this team's been playing their best soccer, and now they get to host a game on Friday night. And you know what? For Santa Clara, it could be as cold as it wants on Friday.
And you know what? It's a familiar foe. And Santa Clara has been really, really good at home. It's been one of the top teams in the country. But coming to Provo on a Friday, crazy cold night might be good for BYU against Santa Clara.
Cross country, the men are ranked number 1 in the country. The women are ranked number 1 in the country.
Wow.
This week, they're at the NCAA Mountain Regional. On Friday, the NCAA championships are just around the corner.
Yeah, the men are ranked number 1, but you know what? The women, they're ranked number 1. Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
That is nuts.
That is amazing.
That's as nuts as being 9-0.
Yeah, so hey, at tennis, Wally Thane and Zach Fuchs will represent BYU at the NCAA tournament. That's starting November 19th in Waco, Texas. They're the first doubles team to qualify for the Cougars in 20 years.
It's usually a spring sport. They moved that to the fall.
Pretty cool.
20 years since we've had a doubles team in the NCAA championships. On this day, we're ready to roll out of here. We're just about on time. It's been such a great show tonight. Every one of our shows have been awesome. And by the way, our live stream, shout out to all of you.
Yeah, thanks so much for contributing.
It's just fun to know that we're connected.
And we try to acknowledge as many as we can, but we know that you're all reading each other's and you're chatting amongst one another, and we really appreciate it.
All right, on this day, on November 11th, we're going old school here.
Yep. Let's go all the way. We always go back to like the 1600s or something, because you do this research. 1620, the Mayflower Pilgrims land in Provincetown Harbor, Massachusetts.
You know, that needed to happen for everything else to happen.
It sure did.
1889, Washington is admitted as the 42nd state in the United States.
In 1921, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier was dedicated at Arlington National Cemetery.
1930, on this day, Albert Einstein awarded the patent for the refrigerator.
Thank goodness he invented that.
Yeah. Can you imagine ever having sour cream if you'd have a refrigerator?
Why did you do milk in the olden days? Just in an icebox?
Maybe they just ate cereal straight.
In 1946, the Knicks played their first game in Madison Square Garden.
How about that?
You know,
that place has been around.
I went to a Knicks game just not that long ago and took my grandson, which was really cool. But you know what my favorite thing I've ever done in Madison Square Garden was? Billy Joel concert.
Oh, yeah. I'll bet that was.
Billy Joel at Madison Square Garden.
I've only been
awesome.
there once. It was for the BYU NIT game in the semifinals. And it was like, okay, there's history here. But I'm like, I'd rather get back to the nice stuff. Yeah. The Marriott Center is so much nicer than Madison Square Garden.
Oh, yeah. It's not about niceness. It's just the history. Yeah. So many cool things have happened there.
Speaking of history, on this day in 1959, the first episode of Rocky and Friends debuts on NBC, and the world was introduced to Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Rocky and Bullwinkle. I watched that when I was a kid.
Where would we be without Rocky and Bullwinkle?
Let's do some birthdays for November 11th and start with 1885, George S. Patton.
I can hear the music right now.
Yep.
Yeah. 1951, Fuzzy Zeller.
Yeah.
Golfer.
In 1962, Demi Moore. Was her best movie Ghost?
I don't know. She's in a bunch of them. That was a pretty good one. I like the line in Seinfeld. Is it Demi or is it Demi? And Jerry goes, I've never heard of a semi-trailer.
Yeah. And Demi Moore she lived in Sun Valley there for a while when she and Bruce Willis were a thing and they were together.
1974 on this day, Leonardo DiCaprio, Titanic fame. And of course, on this day today, in 2024. John Robinson passed away.
Yep.
Complications from pneumonia. He was 89, surrounded by his family in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He spent part of his childhood here in Provo, as his dad worked at Geneva Steel. He went to Rock Canyon Elementary, coached at UNLV for a handful of years. That's where we got to know him. I got to know him. I did his coaches' shows, his games, and just first class. And I think my piece on him is out in the Deseret News tonight. Yeah. If not, it'll be out tomorrow. But just a good dude.
He was so good to both of us, and legendary with USC and LA Rams. You know, he hired Fred Whittingham away from BYU.
Yeah.
To go down and be his defensive coordinator down with the Rams when he got that job down there, and took Fred from BYU at that time.
One thing John Robinson didn't like to do, and this is in my article, he didn't like to talk about football after a game. Mm-hmm. Like after the post-game show ended, he was literally done talking about football. He didn't care what Alabama was doing. He didn't want to talk about his game. And one day he beat Wisconsin. They were ranked 13th or 14th. 23-5, and we're on the tarmac waiting to get on the plane. And I don't know this yet, that he doesn't like to talk about football. Right. And but we had a relationship up to that point with the broadcast and stuff. And he goes, McCann, in this room, McCann. And he waves me over, and I walk over going, "What? This is one of the biggest wins ever in school history," and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, "Tell me everything about your church. You got 5 minutes." And I was like, "What? Yeah, tell me about your church." And so then my mission years kicked back in, and so we stood on the tarmac, and I gave him a 5-minute thing, and after 5 minutes, he goes, "Okay, let's get on the plane and go home."
He didn't want to talk football.
I was sitting there going, "Well, that was odd," and then I found out as we got to know each other, anything but football for a guy who was football.
All about football. You know what? So Brendan and I ran into him on the beach. They were staying at the same hotel we were staying at in Kapalua, up on the northwest shore of Oahu. And he and his family were down at the beach. Our family was at the beach. And I had gotten to know him because of our UNLV times with him. And he and I just talked about baseball for 20 minutes. Just baseball.
Yeah.
He loved baseball. So
he was a good man.
He was a good man.
Wise Guy's inspirational quote of the week is from Elder Jeffrey R. Harlan, the Quorum of the 12 Apostles and former president of BYU.
Yep. And Elder Harlan says, "God doesn't care nearly as much about where you have been as he does about where you are, and with his help, where you are willing to go."
Isn't that great? That's a great quote. We
Elder
thank
Harlan.
Val Hale, author of Out of the Blue, and had some great conversation with him. Troy Dunn from Cruising with the Cougs. I loved his eyewitness account of the game.
Yeah,
and the finish.
Being in the crowd there, in the BYU crowd.
From Saturday. They were awesome. Next week, your old teammate, Scott Phillips.
Yeah, Scott Phillips, 1980 Miracle Bowl, one of the fastest running backs to ever play at BYU.
Dwayne Oakes will give us the lowdown on the showdown in the Valley of the Sun in Arizona. He's the alumni director over that area for BYU, and they've got big plans, and they expect a huge
That's right.
BYU crowd.
It's supposed to be a takeover, and then Stone Cushing, Cougars closer on a baseball team, going to be with us.
That's going to be fun. It might be hard to take over because Arizona State's like they're still in on their team. They're going to a bowl game.
That's the other reason I want them to lose to Kansas State this week.
Hey, C is for Cougars, perfect Christmas gift for every BYU fan, in addition to Out of the Blue. A legend behind every letter. You can get your copy at DeseretBook.com or any Deseret bookstore. Try to do that. Now, here's the week we have.
Yeah, here's where you're going to find us. So tomorrow, Dave and I will be on AFR, 5 Mountain Time on the BYU TV app and on ESPN Plus. And then you can watch it anytime after that you want. Just go to the BYU TV app.
Wednesday, Queens at BYU at 7 Mountain. We'll see on ESPN Plus.
Right. Saturday, you and I will call the Idaho and BYU basketball game at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. That also on ESPN Plus.
Saturday night on BYU Sports Nation Game Day. We're there for 2.5 hours. Like 2 hours and 20 minutes or so. Pre-game coverage that starts at 6 Mountain on ESPN Plus and BYU TV.
Right, and then you can flick over to ESPN and watch the football game, Kansas at BYU. That starts at 8:15 Mountain on the mothership ESPN. Then come back to the post-game show, and that will be on BYU TV. So,
and I'll have a bunch of articles in the Deseret News this week. So it almost feels like we should have T-shirts.
Lots to write
It's
about.
like concert stops.
Yeah.
But this is the best time of year.
Yeah, busy. Football and basketball crossover keeps you and I hopping, that's for sure.
And we are hopping. Remind you, the podcast will be out tomorrow. Share it with your friends. We hope you enjoy it. And go to our YouTube channel, especially all the folks who are new to our stream, and then just click the subscribe button. It's not going to cost you anything. We're trying to get over 5,000. We're trying to get 50,000, but we want to get 5,000 first.
Yeah.
But anyway, we want to build our empire, and that just allows you to get notification when the show comes on. And then you can go to wiseguys.com. You click on a thing, you get our weekly email with highlights, all free.
Yep.
If it's free, it's for me, and
I'll take 3.
We'll take 3.
So let's do it.
So check that out.
Yeah, and remember that Wise Guys is presented by Brady Plus and distributed by the Deseret News.
See you later.